Getting ready to start?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This meeting is being live streamed. There will be an opportunity for questions after each presentation from those seated at the table. Representatives from local, state, and tribal partners will have an opportunity to provide updates during agenda item 11. Public comment will be heard during agenda number 12, and we won't be answering questions during the public comment period, but you are welcome to email questions that you would like the district to consider. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, participants are asked to comment only once on a topic, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We will take public comment first from those who are in the room, and then we'll switch over to Zoom. Staff and presenters will be happy to follow up on any specific questions via email. Thank you for attending today's forum, and I'll pass it to you, Drew.
Thank you, Yvette. Well, welcome everybody to the June 24th, 2026 Water Resiliency Forum here at the South Florida Water Management District. Drew Bartlett, I'm the Executive Director here, and I want to welcome everyone and really thank you for participating. This is a pretty robust agenda that I looked at yesterday, and we've got a lot of good participants, a lot of great agencies. We've got the state resiliency officer, Chief Resiliency Officer joining us. We have the Florida Flood Hub joining us, the Army Corps of Engineers, Florida Department of Emergency Management, and then of course local governments and everybody that works on all these resiliency efforts here. So it's a great forum, a great place for a conversation, and I first want to just thank Dr. Moran at the district for this idea and pulling this idea to reality so that we have this space to have these types of conversations because they're critically important. And the way I kind of highlight the importance of these conversations is that, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of missions when it comes to resiliency that a lot of folks and a lot of different agencies need to implement, and they're very, they have their unique flair. Every resiliency mission has its flair, and they intersect all the time. And so our flood control and water supply mission, when it comes to resiliency, will often intersect with other missions. An easy example is power, right? We have linear conveyances, they have linear conveyances, and they cross paths all the time. And so there's always something to work out as they're executing their resiliency mission, which is frequent, and we execute ours. The other one that we intersect is recreation, right? As we are putting resiliency forward in our infrastructure, it often intersects places where people recreate because we're near a lot of natural lands and we're in urban environments as well. So those, and you cannot work out those without communication, right? If you just executed your mission in a vacuum, you would not succeed. So there's always that connection that you have to make, that communication, that relationship that you have to make, and that's where these kind of forums get to be very important. Where we are as a water management district is we're kind of at a critical point in our history. We are now 76 years old as of June 4th as a water management district, but we were formed as a flood control district, many of you know. And that flood control system had its challenges environmentally and economically. And so we've been retrofitting it through the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. And now we have online 2 brand new reservoirs that are operating. We got conveyance features, we got stormwater treatment areas for water quality. We've got a lot of new infrastructure online that now has to be operated. Power bills, gas bills, employee bills, mowing bills, all those kind of things. We have all this new infrastructure coming online to operate. And that is coming online at the exact same time that the old infrastructure that was built 60 plus years ago in a decade and a half to 2 decade time frame is aging out. So it's kind of at a crossroads right now where our resiliency mission is front and foremost when it comes to flood control and water management, because we have got to invest and invest in retrofitting our flood control system to deal with sea level rise, which we've talked about here a lot, and renew it, right? Infrastructure doesn't last forever. Concrete doesn't last forever. So you've got to rebuild a lot of this infrastructure at the same time because it is aged out. So it's an acute focus that we have here at the Water Management District. So as we talk about resiliency and we talk about how to do all those things, it is with a hyper focus, quite frankly, on flood control and water management, because that is where a lot of investment has to happen. And you've seen it already, possibly, in Dr. Moran taking on a new position as the Director of Flood Control and Water Supply Planning. And so that's how we're sort of making sure that our mission focus in this space is achieved, because we've got that challenge before us. So that, so we are really focused on that mission, but of course we can't focus on our mission without being empathetic and having that conversation about all the other missions that intersect resiliency in this space. So it's a interesting time for the Water Management District, and it's a really important time for resiliency when it comes to all of us making sure that Florida itself is resilient. So again, I applaud everyone participating. I applaud the other agencies for participating in this forum, because it really doesn't exist outside of this forum except for different conferences that don't happen as frequently. So thank you, Dr. Moran, for making this happen for us, and to us maybe as well. I don't know. But that's why we're here. So I appreciate everybody being here. It's a good opportunity, and I look forward to hearing the results of this conversation. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Moran after that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Drew. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. I'm going to turn the word to Eddie Boza. He is online. He was going to be here in person, but last minute he couldn't. We're still waiting for you in person here, Eddie. No pressure, but anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And I will give the mic to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Moran. And again, apologies. I was really trying to make it for this particular meeting, but my travel lately has been a little crazy, and I owed it to the family to maybe stick around a couple more days. I would like to just say ditto to Director Bartlett's comments. Okay, great. See you guys later. No, just kidding. I appreciate all those kind words, and I do have just some quick updates. Nothing major for this meeting. We do expect that we will have funding in the state budget that will become effective July 1st for both implementation, planning, and regional resilience entities. The state plan funding, as a reminder, this would be funding for projects that were applied for last year through our portal. So the way the program is set up, the applications come in, they wait for the legislature to determine funding amounts, and then get funded sort of a year later. But we expect 160 million to go towards 23 to 26 new projects in the state plan. The planning grant appropriation does look like it got cut down a little bit. We've had an opportunity over the years to conduct vulnerability assessments and adaptation plans, and every community has had an opportunity to get access to those funds. So they did come down to 10 million on planning grants. At least thankfully that sort of was reflected in the implementation funds to go up a little bit from what's been in the past. And then regional resilience for the $2 million for regional groups, expect that to go through as well. And we've actually already received proposals for those projects, and those are under evaluation now so that we can hit the ground running as soon as possible, starting on July 1st. There is another upcoming application window on July 1st. The portal will open until September 1st for both planning and implementation projects. As a reminder, the implementation projects for the Resilient Florida program specifically is the window. to adapt critical assets. So these are existing critical assets that are at risk, demonstrated at risk in a vulnerability assessment or in the statewide assessment. Unfortunately, as the program currently exists, that application cannot support creating new infrastructure or adding new stormwater systems where there's not existing systems. We've had some applications get bumped for eligibility just because of the way the statute's written. So while we acknowledge that better serving a particular area with a new system or a neighborhood with a new system is a good project, the way the program is currently constructed, those are not eligible. They have to adapt existing critical assets. And then planning projects. We hope to see this year a range of different activities, more adaptation planning, feasibility studies for nature-based solutions. That grant can also support pre-construction activities for communities eligible for reduced cost share. And so we hope to kind of see a bigger range of activities in the planning applications this year. Department of Commerce has a rural infrastructure fund that's open right now. That's until July 13th. I know there is a South Central Rural District. I believe it's mostly the Heartland and Okeechobee County. So if you're familiar with Florida Commerce or not familiar with Florida Commerce and want to get tapped in, you can reach out to me and I can connect you. There's about $22 million available statewide for that rural infrastructure fund through Department of Commerce. And then a couple of events that myself and state representation will be joining this summer and into the fall. The Environmental Permitting School down in Marco Island. We're going to have a good contingency there. So love to catch up with y'all down in Marco in about almost less than a month now. And then there's the Resilience Conference in Charlotte Harbor, sort of the Shore and Beach Preservation Resilience Group Combo Conference. That's become an annual hit. That is in September, and we'll be sending a good group down there too. So hope to catch y'all at one of those or the other. And I'm not sure if the agenda or if Dr. Moran wants me to take questions, but I'm happy to, or I'm happy to pass it back to you, Dr. Moran.
Thank you, Eddie. Yes, if anybody has questions to Eddie Boza, please, this is time. No? No questions right now. If there is anything that comes out, I will let you know. Eddie, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm transitioning to item number 3. We have here Dr. Jacoby from the Florida Flood Hub. Thank you for being here, and I will pass the mic to him.
Thank you, Carolina. So yeah, my task here today is to kind of bring you an update on what's going on at the Flood Hub. First, I'll start by kind of commenting on how dealing with non-stationarity, which is really the target of the Flood Hub. So looking out into the future, and we know that because of the non-stationarity, looking backward doesn't help us as much. But one of the things about the future is the uncertainty that's involved. And so a lot of the Flood Hub's work is to present the possible futures, as it were, and then try to provide a little guidance on how you might go about selecting the one that applies to your planning. So I'll take you back a bit to the work of one of our initial groups of experts, which was on changes in sea level, and the way that they tried to address helping people make a choice among the 5 scenarios that are listed on the left there, which go from a low level of relative sea level rise to a high level. And that just reflects the kind of uncertainty that exists in the modeling of how the sea level will change as temperature changes. What they used was what are called exceedance probabilities. So they went in and calculated for different temperature increases by 2100. Which of those scenarios would be exceeded for sure or never reached, and then which ones sort of fell in the middle. And 3 degrees is the sort of agreed target for temperature change by 2100 at the moment. And so that red box kind of highlights that. And then you go down the column there and you'll see that the exceedance probabilities are between 82 and 5% for 2 of those scenarios, the intermediate and the intermediate low. So those are the scenarios that existing information, as it were, points to. They're neither highly likely to be exceeded or not ever reached. So then that means that when you go to the actual changes in sea level that are estimated, which is shown in this graph, that's the median change and the 17th and 83rd percentiles to give you some idea of the range of the outputs of the models. And that's in feet on the y-axis. And then across the x-axis are the different scenarios from relatively low forcing to high forcing, and different temporal horizons from 2020 to 2080. So the red arrows highlight the ones that fall in that kind of bracket for 2050 and 2080, the target planning horizons for Resilient Florida at the moment, in the intermediate, low, and intermediate. So that's somewhere between 0.96 feet and 2.30 feet, depending on your planning horizon and your choice of scenario. Also remind you that one of the things the Flood Hub does is try to take the existing data and tailor it to Florida. So many people have been interacting with a 2022 federal report, the last sort of federal effort to predict sea levels. And in that report, like a lot of national reports, Florida got split. So the Gulf Coast went with the Gulf states and the East Coast went with the southeastern states. And when the Flood Hub isolated the data for Florida, it came up with values that are slightly lower. So those are the solid lines in those two graphs. The left-hand one is comparing to the Eastern Gulf, as they call it, and the right-hand graph is comparing to the southeast. And the dashed and dotted lines are the ones from the 2022 report. So again, tailoring, made a bit of a difference, and in some cases, these inches matter. So we've then tried to use the exceedance probabilities that were calculated to go ahead and guide folks in terms of change factors for design storms, which was the next target. So Atlas 14 stations have design storms. These change factors are like multipliers for those depth, duration, frequency curves. And again, focus in on the 3-degree temperature rise by 2100 because that's the most likely. Added in then the shared socioeconomic pathways, the SSPs, which is the new global approach to trying to tie changes in radiative forcing, changes in the heat retained in the atmosphere, back to things like emission standards. So that involves socioeconomic and sort of, physical chemical modeling. So the 3-degree temperature change in 2100 falls somewhere between SSP 2 4.5 and 3 7.0. So the 4.5 and the 7.0 are the actual changes in radiative forcing, the change in the amount of heat that's retained in the atmosphere. And that links you back to the initial effort, which was all based on physics, where they didn't have the link back to the socioeconomic modeling. So then if we go to the change factors themselves, again, it's the medians and the 17th and 83rd percentiles along the y-axis for the two different planning horizons, 2050 and 2080. And then if you look along the x-axis there, you have the duration, 1 day, 3 days, and 7 days of rainfall, and the return intervals for the storms from 5 to 500 years. And the targets then would be either 2 4.5 or 3 7.0. And the range of medians are shown there, 1.03 to 1.12 for 2050, and 1.06 to 1.15 for 2080. So that's somewhere between 3 and 15% more rainfall for a given design storm. Once again, just remind everybody that the Flood Hub puts these values out there, and we provide the full range of values typically so people can see how this all fits together. And our stuff is neither prescriptive nor proscriptive, right? So if you want to use a different set of values, you probably just need to explain why that is. So for the change factors that I just showed you, that was done using statistical downscaling. So you're taking the grid, the data outputs from the global models, which is 1 degree latitude by 1 degree longitude, and trying to downscale that to the Atlas 14 stations. When you do the statistical downscaling, you decouple the sort of dynamics that drive those changes. So you can't work your way back to explain patterns you might see in the outputs. So one of the things the Flood Hub's doing is working with a range of groups, multiple groups, including the district, to do regional modeling, so to dynamically downscale from the global models to Florida. There's sort of 3 different models that will be coupled. So we take the global model and run it through the community Earth system model. That brings the grid down to a moderate resolution. And then that output's handed on to the users of the regional spectrum model and the region ocean system model, which downscales it some more to about 10-kilometer grids. And then the weather research and forecasting model brings it down to around 2 to 4 kilometers. And as you do that, you see things that are important to Florida. So in a 1 degree latitude by 1 degree longitude grid, you barely get grid cells in Florida. It's just too narrow and long, as it were. So you also don't see the things that affect the weather in Florida because of the way it sticks out into the ocean, as it were. And that's shown in the top one there, where the left hand is a global model, CMIP 6, and the right hand is that community Earth system model output. And the arrows point to the fact that you now begin to see the temperature, the sort of red that marks the Gulf Stream and things like the loop current, which affect weather in Florida, particularly rainfall. Then when you go another level down, you begin to see a match in the observations of precipitation. So in that center set of 3 figures there, the left one is observations, so the green is a little more rainfall. That doesn't show up even in that community Earth system model. The resolution's not there to pick up that sort of localized rainfall. And then if you use the next set of models, the coupled models there, you do begin to see that in the output of the models. So again, you're picking up ability to find regional, and then down at the very bottom is sort of hyper-local rainfall. So that's output from the weather research and forecasting model, where they hindcast the 2023 rainfall that was in Fort Lauderdale, the over 20 inches in sort of like 12 hours, I think. And they were able to match that both in intensity and location pretty well. The thing about this approach is that it allows us to go back and track the dynamics that lead to any patterns, right? So if the change factors differ across the state for some reason, we can find out why. With the statistical downscaling, we couldn't do that. And so that's why the group, again, recommended sort of one set of change factors for the whole state, because there wasn't a very clear pattern, wasn't very consistent, it wasn't much larger than the noise, as it were, between the Atlas 14 stations. And so we're hoping this will help us to identify patterns if they exist. So the approach is to establish a reference period, which we've done. That's 10 years centered on 2015. That's so everybody kind of goes back and models the same period, and we can make sure that all the models are focused properly. Then there's a historical ensemble. So that's 5 runs of 10-year simulations. 2 of those are complete. I think the third one's well on its way. And then there'll be 2 different sets of sort of future casts. One will be pinned to a 2-degree warming. So there again, you get 5 by 10-year simulations with 2 degrees warmer starting conditions, and then 3 degrees warmer. And once again, you take the future casts and you put that over the hindcast, as it were, the historical, and that gives you the change factor. It gives you the multiplier. So if the future rainfall is 3% greater, you get that in the ratio. And once again, what we're hoping is we can work our way back to the rationale behind some of these things that we might see in patterns. The Flood Hub's also been involved in what I'll call things that are a little more tactical. So this subscription to ISI is in force now, and we're tracking events. Again, to remind you, ISI uses their primary input is synthetic aperture radar on satellites, which does a really good job of finding water on the ground. and they take in that imagery and use other sources of information as well, and generate a flood extent and depth. So a 4x4 meter resolution, 13 foot by 13 foot grid of extent and depth of flooding. The current subscription through the Flood Hub is the core data are available to all the state level agencies and also the water management districts. And then if we're certainly looking into the future. So this year we'll get reports on all the storms for 2026. The group that's involved at the moment has access to 6 events in the past. Gives them a chance to kind of get workflows and make some plans about how to use these kinds of data in the future. And that sort of from Ian in 2022 is the first of the major events that eyesight tracked. Derivatives are a thing of discussion, so the access to the core data is to the subscribers, as it were, but we may be able to come up with products that are helpful to people, and we're happy to discuss that. And we're certainly happy to discuss partners for future years. So if this kind of information sounds good to your county or city or whatever, please let me know and bring your wallet. We also have 3 collaborations with the Florida Silver Jackets. One is a continuation of this particular effort, which started an inventory of models. So the concept being to capture, in this case, the metadata for the models that exist, so that potentially people down the road can look into this inventory and begin to figure out if a model exists that they might not need to create a new one. The wheel may already be there. So right now we're working on a guidebook to this inventory, which is meant to kind of help folks who may not be as experienced with modeling get into the inventory, understand what's in there, and make use of it. And we'll also be looking to expand the inventory as we go forward. A second project is looking at flood observations. So here again, it's in my head, it's kind of like crowdsourcing observations on flooding, but it may be other sort of organized efforts that document flooding around the state. Currently, there's a survey that's out there to try and understand what the landscape looks like. So again, sort of inventory all the different programs. And if you want more information, that lady right over there, Lacey, can help you with that. She's the head of this particular effort. And the third one that we're involved in is a post-flooding hazard effort. So again, the 2024 hurricanes sort of spurred some folks to think about maybe there are ways we can improve our response, particularly getting information out about what are some hazards that may exist after flooding has happened. They're currently doing a survey as well, and that survey is designed to get topics, as it were, for a workshop, where they'll try to figure out what people feel they have and don't have, and then get together and sort of make a plan about how to improve the situation. And so again, if you want more information, please let me know. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jacoby, any question from around the room? Yes. Hi, Heidi.
Dr. Jacoby, thank you very much.
You have to hold the button.
Press and hold. Okay, got it. I'm learning to press and hold. So on the moving to the more granular model, am I correct to understand that although it's more informative, it's also more uncertain? So that would suggest that the low probabilities that are assigned to kind of the more catastrophic events would theoretically be higher probabilities as the tails get thicker on the more granular models?
I'm not sure that that's quite true. Certainly one of the concerns is as you try to push these models, right, the resolution of these models, you do hit a point where the benefits outweighed a little bit by the costs, as it were. So one of the things that they had tried And one of the reasons we've kind of back to 2 to 4 kilometer grids was at a 1 kilometer grid, which they can do, you started to end up with, like you said, some sort of strangeness, right? So, you know, you push the model a little too hard, the math can't quite keep up with reality, as it were. And but when they backed off, the 2 to 4 kilometer, you know, sort of matched up a little better. So that's probably why we'll do most things at that scale rather than push it too hard.
And the major goal is to reduce uncertainty.
Carolina.
When they're
Hi.
Amy Eason, Martin County. Can you explain the overlap with what the Florida Jackets are doing with the flood observation and what South Florida Water Management District is doing? Because maybe it's just a collection of where you can do it, because I actually answered that survey for Martin County, so I'm just curious.
I can answer, and I'm also going to cover during my slides. So it's the same effort. We are collaborating with the Florida Flood Hub. There is no solution yet determined. I think the effort, and please, Chuck, add to this as you feel relevant, but the effort led by the Florida Flood Hub through the Silver Jackets is to expand the efforts we have been doing here in South Florida and trying to streamline those observations into one repository, one location, so bringing this to the statewide level. But the effort they're doing right now is mapping available tools statewide. So we wanted to collaborate with them in terms of showing what else there is out there in addition to our tool. We know it's not the only one. So that's why we share the survey with everyone, our counties as well. And in the email, Nicole is leading this effort. She clarified that we continue to use the tools that we have put in place, and the goal is to be able to find a link, right? There is enough technology out there today that we don't need to be discussing a tool. If we have a process that communicate and link all this information, we have a solution. I think that's where we're going to land, but we are coordinating with the Florida Flood Hub and hoping to get there.
Yeah, I know personally we were trying to advocate South Florida's tool to our communities and make sure that they're using those tools, although we do get requests for flooding and whatnot, but we try to push your tools. So I'm just trying to figure out the streamline.
Continue that way, yeah. And hopefully this will feed the statewide effort. So, yeah. Yes, okay.
Chuck, on the rainfall analysis that y'all are doing, I know I've been told in history that the AMO, the Atlantic Multidecadal Oscillation, had a pretty significant influence on rainfall. So I don't know if you're seeing anything in the modeling that would suggest that's changing or anything's happening there, but I'm wondering what your observations, thoughts are on the AMO and its influence.
I think, I mean, again, I believe it to still be there, as it were. You know, we're still early days in terms of pulling these modeling efforts together. But I think one of the things is when we have discussions about change factors is to decouple change factors from patterns in rainfall, right? So change factors apply to the design storms, as it were, right? And the design storms capture that variation in rainfall, right? So if you go to different Atlas 14 stations, you get different amounts of rainfall for a given storm, right? The change factor says globally, because it's talking about a global forcing thing, is that going to change? Is that going to be consistent across Florida, or will that differ in different places? And the concept is there's some early indications that if certain things change, like currents, major currents and things, if those shift somehow, we may see patterns in change factors, right? And in fact, there's some runs of things pretty on the extreme end that said a lot of Florida got drier, not wetter. You know, so again, that's what the hope is, that by doing all this modeling, we can get in there and understand how these things get driven.
Great. Any more questions? Not seeing anyone? Oh, yes, go ahead. Come. Yes. Yeah, feel free.
We had heard about some forthcoming products related to compound flooding, or standardizing approach. Any updates there?
So, I mean, the flood hub's still working on ways to get stuck into, as it were, compound flooding. I know that there is some effort out there to, well, the American Society of Civil Engineers is making a fairly major effort to try and pull the threads of compound flooding together so that the words compound flooding actually mean something and don't kind of degenerate into a catch-all for any kind of flooding that nobody quite understands, as it were. So, we're certainly looking forward to that in terms of, trying to nail down exactly how we approach different things. One of our challenges is, to come up with a way to do compound flooding that doesn't involve a heavy dose of proprietary information, because that tends to not be good in the long haul, as it were. So it's a challenge.
I also have some updates on these slides. Yes.
Question, Chuck. Have you thought about Atlas 15 and how you might integrate that into your workflows? We certainly thought about it. One of the key folks on Atlas 15 was one of the work group members. So, we've talked about it. Again, kind of anticipating the release of, the full effort, as it were. And then we'll have to see what that means for things like change factors. Atlas 15 is the kind of first time that they've tried to incorporate non-stationarity into the design storm effort. And so we're trying to figure out exactly where that takes us. I guess just to broaden that out, all of this is a sort of a moving target. So you'll get values for now, but expect values to change in the future. I mean, not drastically, but I think again, as we learn more and more and get better and better at this, things will continue to change.
Good. I see no more hand raises. Thank you. With that, I'm going to transition to our next item. This agenda is a little bit different than other agendas because we had participation from most of the agencies at the state today. And thank you again for all of you. We just wanted to have this block with updates from the state before we kind of start digging into South Florida. We do have FDEM and FDOT here with us today. And the next item here, item number 4, is with the Florida Department of Emergency Management. We have been working for so long with them, and I know you are all on the same page, working closely with them through the local mitigation strategy committees and other efforts. So I'm really thankful for their participation, and I would like to invite Mitchell Budhas to join us and provide an update on the statewide plan and hazard mitigation program.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Moran. So again, good morning, everyone. My name is Mitchell Budahas, and I am the planning manager for the Bureau of Mitigation up here at FDEM. And I'm going to provide you guys with some updates today related to our hazard mitigation assistance programs, some generalized statistics of grant programs in South Florida Water Management District, and then some updates related to our state hazard mitigation plan that we're going through currently. So next slide, please. To start with our grant programs, you can go to the next slide as well. We're going to talk about the HMGP, FMA, and BRIC programs. So as many of you guys might know, the areas that we are concerned with up here in terms of hazard mitigation assistance from FEMA is going to be our non-disaster and our disaster grants. Our non-disaster grants being our flood mitigation assistance. And then finally, it's back, our Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant, also known as BRIC. And then as our disaster-driven grant program is going to be the hazard mitigation grant program. And then at the state level, we also have the hurricane loss mitigation program, and we'll get into those in a little bit. Next slide, please. So here's an overview of the hazard mitigation grant program, affectionately known as HMGP, as a lot of you guys know. This is going to be authorized by Section 404 of the Stafford Act, which is going to be for implementing long-term hazard mitigation following those major disaster declarations. Like all things in mitigation, the period of performance is generally pretty long with a 4-year period of performance. And the typical cost share, or the maximum you can go up to on this one, is going to be 75% covered by the federal government, and then 25% covered by non-federal funding. In Florida, we have an enhanced state hazard mitigation plan, which allows us to get 20% of federal disaster assistance for those declared disasters, which is 5% more than most states that are not enhanced. And then within Florida, we use our 3-tier system established in Florida Administrative Code to provide funding to those impacted counties first, and then provide more statewide funding afterwards. Next slide, please. Here's just a generalized list of eligible projects that you can get funded through HMGP. This is not a comprehensive list. These are just kind of the different categories. A lot of residential projects, a lot of structural and infrastructure retrofitting projects that are going on, as well as some things related to new construction. We like to say up here at DEM that you can bring us any project you want, and we'll discuss how that might get fit into the program itself. And we can get pretty creative with you guys, with our engineer team, and see how we can get a project funded. Next slide, please. So here's our implementation timeline. Like I said, the period of performance for HMGP itself is about 4 years long. So it can take a while from that disaster to see the progress being made within your communities. You guys can see kind of the actions along the bottom here, where we get our notice of funding availabilities within the first 120 days post-declaration, which includes our sub-application deadline, the 15 months of reviews that a project might go through. This is kind of just generally the maximum time it would take. Some projects move a lot quicker, and some have a little bit long of that 15 months to get through the review process with not only the state, where we review all of your applications from engineering, planning, programmatic, and then environmental, to then send them up to FEMA for the final approval. We do all that work on behalf of FEMA. That way we can get the most out of the projects. That way we can get you guys to a yes on a project instead of you guys having to go back and forth with FEMA on these projects. And then that 48 months to get that award and then get through all of the process of putting shovels to dirt and getting that project completed. Next slide, please. So we kind of talked about our NOFA, our Notice of Funding Availability creation. So this will be coming out approximately 120 days after a disaster. And you guys can kind of see the breakdown here of where we get the funding from. It's all based on federal aid. And how we break that up is through individual assistance and public assistance data that we gather from our Recovery Bureau and from FEMA as well. And then the county allocations are going to be broken down by the amount of individual assistance, public assistance, and SBA recovery percentages for each county. In terms of planning for a application for HMGP, we come out with 30-day estimates, as you can kind of see by the example on the right side of the slide, a 6-month estimate, and then a 12-month lock-in cap. So throughout that time, you'll have those different estimates to start planning for what kind of projects you want to do, getting the different costs that are going to be associated with that project, and start planning. Next slide, please. Here's a better breakdown of how everything's allocated for HMGP in the state. So the tier 1 is going to be that initial allocation of submitted and eligible projects that are going to be funded in order of priority as endorsed by your local mitigation strategy working groups or any presidentially declared counties. Then when it gets to tier 2, that'll be any of the allocation that remains for all of the eligible projects from those declared counties that will be funded either from within the county itself or from another county that partially funded projects with their allocation. And then if funding remains, we get down to tier 3, and any of the unobligated funds will then be turned into a first come, first serve basis for funding projects that are obligated. Next slide, please. In terms of visualizing this, we kind of have this example here of a county that had an allocation of just over $7.2 million. All of those running sums on the right side of the graph there, those green ones are going to be your tier 1 projects. The blue one will be your tier 2 project. The yellow will be your potential bumper project can either be in tier 3 or tier 2. And then all those peach colored ones would be considered tier 3 based on the amount of funding that is being requested based on the allocation that was given to them. Next slide, please. Switching over to our non-disaster grants. So the first one will be our flood mitigation assistance program. And this one is going to, the overall goal is going to be to reduce or eliminate those claims under the NFIP, and then reducing or eliminating the risk of repetitive flood damage. This one has a peer performance that follows much like HMGP 4 years, but has a different cost shares over here on the right. So for generalized community flood projects, you can see a 75 to 25 split for federal and non-federal shares. When it comes to addressing those repetitive loss properties in your communities, you can see up to a 90% federal cost share with a 10% non-federal. And then any of those properties that are designated as severe repetitive loss, you can see up to a 100% federal cost share for those projects. And unlike the disaster-driven grants, our non-disaster grants, flood mitigation assistance, and BRIC are funded, appropriated annually by Congress and are nationally competitive. Don't fret though, our teams here are very good at getting applications together with you guys, and Full remains very competitive in getting lots of projects funded every single year. Next slide, please. So here are some of the eligible project categories under FMA. We see our return of our residential programs, our projects like elevations and acquisitions, flood risk reduction projects, our structural infrastructure retrofitting, and then mitigation reconstructions. Included in this one, though, we also have funding for mitigation planning and management costs. So things that can get put into that would be funding for your local mitigation strategy plans, any sort of resiliency planning, and then, of course, with the state hazard mitigation plan, we could also apply as the state to get funding for that. Next slide, please. BRIC is back. Building resilient infrastructure in communities. It went away for a little bit, but it has now been funded again by the federal government. And for this one, we're looking at capability and capacity building for our communities. It really does encourage and enable innovation and seeing a lot of partners. So you can see cross-county, cross-jurisdictional promotion here. And it has a peer performance of about 4 years, the same as the other two grants. But the cost share is much like HMGP, kind of set at that 75-25 non-federal, federal share split. The allocation, like FMA, is going to be annually appropriated, but that funding amount can vary year to year. And then for an update for this most current cycle, because it was canceled in the FY 2025 or 24 application cycle, we reopened it just to jurisdictions that had projects that were in the process of being reviewed with FEMA at the time of the cancellation. But we are very confident that we might be seeing a new NOSA funding opportunity coming out from FEMA soon. Generally, they release those in June or July, and we're on the lookout, and we'll keep you guys informed of when the next opportunity for BRIC comes out. Next slide, please. There's a whole bunch of different things you can get creative with here in BRIC. We have residential projects. We have our flood risk and flood control projects. You can do mitigation planning, which includes project scoping, building code activities, and pre-award costs. There's also a section for wildfire mitigation, where you can expand upon wildfire activities under Section 1205 of the Stafford Act. And then included in here is also a new construction for safe rooms and mitigation reconstruction. Next slide, please. Here's our non-disaster implementation timeline. It looks a little bit different from the HMGP timeline because it's not driven by the disaster. So generally, the NOFO will come out in August. We're hoping for this year's will come out in June, July. And then we'll have our state application deadline, which will include a notice of interest period to submit projects to the non-disaster grants team here at FDEM, in which we'll work with you guys, do our state review, RFIs, and then submit for approval by the FEMA application deadline. Then it goes into that 6 to 12 month FEMA review and award period. and then about 48 months to do project implementation and closeout. Next slide, please. Here is the application process itself. So typically in the midsummer, June or July, we'll have our notice of interest period in advance of that notice of funding opportunity being published by FEMA. Then when it gets released, we'll do the sub-application deadline and establish that. And then we'll distribute all of the guidance that is specific for that FY. We'll have that state application deadline, which is typically in November, where we go through all those reviews. Then January, and late in January is generally when that FEMA application deadline is, and then you'll kick off onto that FEMA review and award period, and then get into your construction. Next slide, please. And then we have the state-run hurricane loss mitigation program. It's a state non-disaster grant, and the goal with this program is to improve flood and resilience of residences and community buildings. This one has a much shorter period performance. It's 1 year. The type and the cost share for this one is a reimbursement grant, but is 100% state funded, and no local match is required for this program. Generally, the project cost is going to be capped at $225,000 to $250,000 per project, and the allocation itself is for the program $3.5 million annually. But part of the cool thing of this program run by the state is that it pours money into the Hurricane Public Shelter Retrofit Program, the Mobile Home Tie-Down Program with Gulf Coast State College, and then we also assist with FIU's International Hurricane Research Center, colloquially known as the Wall of Wind, as many of you might know. Next slide, please. The project types for HLMP are a little bit more constrained based on that 1 year in which you're going to be able to get that project done. We see residential and non-residential run retrofits. Tree trimming is an eligible activity under this program, which generally is not an authorized activity and is considered maintenance under FEMA's HMA programs. And then you can do things like looking at localized flood risk reduction and then property acquisition and demolition. Next slide, please. So mitigation is alive and well within the South Florida Water Management District. Apologies. Next slide, please. On this slide, there's a lot going on, but this is the number of projects that are currently active or submitted to FDEM and are ongoing throughout the district. You guys can kind of see that there are a lot of HMGP projects going on. The new EF is for Elevate Florida, the state-run residential mitigation program, and then several different types of non-disaster grants all throughout the district. So we encourage you guys to keep up all the good work you guys are already doing. And if you guys have any things required for assistance or questions, always feel free to reach out to us. Next slide, please. And then as it relates to our enhanced state hazard mitigation plan, there's a couple updates. Next slide, please. So we have begun hosting several of our stakeholder engagement sessions throughout the state. We had our first one in Bradford County last week, and it went really well. And in the next slide, there'll be more opportunities that we're going to hopefully engage with you guys on. We did send out a local emergency management stakeholder engagement questionnaire survey to get your guys' feedback on everything and see how it can be, how the new SHIMP can be better used, identifying any challenges and gaps, and then topics that will help strengthen mitigation planning and resiliency across the state. Next slide, please. Like I said, here are our upcoming plan update workshops. We're going to be in Osceola County on July 31st from 2 to 4, talking about the SHIMP and the update. Then in Pinellas County on August 19th. And then for anyone who can't attend those two sessions in person, we're hosting a statewide virtual Teams workshop on August 24th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you can reach out to us at mitigationplanning at em.myflorida.com to get registered, or you can use the registration link down here, as well as the link to the survey. If you're not able to attend any of the sessions, please fill out the survey. We want to get all of your guys' input and see how we can make the SHIMP more usable for you guys at the local level and at the district. Next slide, please. And then lastly, here's our mitigation directory. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on here. Myself, I'm the planning manager. If you have anything related to floodplain management, please reach out to our state floodplain manager, Jillian Kranak. Anything related to residential mitigation, you can reach out to Bridget Flynn, our residential mitigation specialist. Anything related to our technical team, Luz Bassani, you can reach out to her as the program manager. Anything related to environmental and engineering, you have the inboxes there. For our hazard mitigation grant program, you can reach out to Kathleen Marshall. She is our program manager. And then for flood mitigation assistance and BRIC, you can reach out to Miss Susan Harris Council, who is the program manager, as well as she is the contact for the hurricane loss mitigation program now. And then overall, you can reach out to either Laura or Kristen as the chief and deputy chief of mitigation. Here are some resources if you would like to get signed up for our communications. We have a GovDeliver where we send out communications on training opportunities, grant announcements, anything related to mitigation across the state. Our Office of Floodplain Management has a website as well as different planning resources related to the State Hazard Mitigation Plan, local mitigation strategy resources, and the Florida Silver Jackets program, which we are glad to be a part of here at the state, and especially partnering with the Flood Hub and Chuck and his team. Next slide. And then here's some resources related to our grant programs. I can send this out to everyone afterwards, or I can give it to Yvette to distribute, but there's a lot of good resources on here related to the grant programs. Any questions that might come up, there's a couple FAQs, or just any guidance related to those programs themselves. Next slide, please. I believe that's it. Pending any questions from you guys.
Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you very much for the very comprehensive presentation and a lot of valuable links. So any question from the room? Go ahead, Amy.
I have one question because this is Amy Eason with Martin County. We've got 2 HMGP grants that are way beyond the time schedule that you have on the slides, and one of the projects I've been working on for like 3 years, so or waiting for 3 years. So can you give me a little insight? This was like Hurricane Dorian funds. We were told that the project has gone to FEMA for approval, but it's been a long time.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So one of the things we do as a part of our program administration by state is we submit requests for extensions on either the application periods for disasters or for the period of performance extensions. And for that, because FEMA can take a long time to get through their review process, and with government shutdowns, it does make things a little more complicated. We do routinely get those extensions approved. So that might be the case for those specific projects where they have gone on for so long waiting for approval, and they're still within that extended period of performance as approved by FEMA.
And for a second question, I love the table that kind of shows the funding that's given by counties, and I'm assuming there's funding allocations per county per storm. Is there like a summary table of like how much money those counties have received or in process? Because if, like, for instance, mine's Hurricane Dorian money and we haven't gotten that money, or is it possibly that maybe the funding's not there? I'm just curious about that.
No, absolutely. So we do have a person on our programmatic team for HMGP that does work on all of the allocations and tracking of projects that get awarded. For your specific situation, I would encourage you to reach out to Kathleen Marshall or the general HMGP inbox, and they'll be able to get you that printout tracking all of that information for you guys.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yes, Mitchell, my question was a little bit similar to Amy's question. I believe last time I spoke with Laura, she explained that there was this backup on FEMA because of the shutdown and other reasons too. And she was prioritizing a few of those requests to release some funding to the state. I believe we just got some release about 2, 3 weeks ago. There was a large announcement. I believe those are almost like emergency response reimbursements, not HMGP projects yet. But maybe can you tell us a little bit kind of if there is a sequence or how you have been prioritizing those requests to FEMA with regards to the multiple programs and I don't know if there is any priority, but is there a path in terms of getting those released from FEMA?
Yes. So Laura and Kevin, the director up here, they have been shaking the tree about weekly with FEMA, asking for funding to be released. And as it gets going, especially because of the shutdown, it did create quite a bit of a backlog in the review process, whether that was getting stuck in the environmental reviews or with the large project notification and now the small project notification processes, which has been ironed out, and we are glad to see that there is movement happening now. But in any project-specific things, I would reach out to the HMGP team, and they can get you any sort of specific project information where the project might be held up currently and what they're going through with getting those requests through to FEMA.
Thank you.
This is Amy, just to add, because the timing is so critical. For instance, the project that I'm waiting on, we had to go, we had all our permits in hand, and the permit expired in the middle of the review. So it's just a long process.
We feel your pain. We routinely ask them to make things more quick, but as the federal government runs, we have little effect to that. But hopefully, we don't run into too many of those situations in the future. We love the partnership and the resilience part that you guys are working on down at that level, and we just hopefully we can, with whatever's changing with the review council, hopefully it makes things quicker.
Yes, and I did not read truly, and I still have some documents I am planning to finish a more detailed review, Mitchell, but with the review council, right now the state has delegation authority on the hazard mitigation program to different than other states, I believe, to really manage, review, and award the projects. Does that also include perhaps reducing some of the federal funding requirements in terms of that, or treating funding more like a state funds?
Yes, so because we have that full program administration by states with FEMA, where we conduct all the engineering, environmental, programmatic, and planning reviews for FEMA in advance of it submitting the project to them for consideration, it does help reduce that overall FEMA management cost. But we do request state management costs as a part of that. Whenever a disaster is declared, we request state management costs for that disaster for HMGP so that we can keep our teams moving in the right direction and doing that work for FEMA.
But the money continues to be treated as federal funding, right? Fully federal funding, even when you award the local governments.
Yes.
And there is no provision in this new discussion to change that or reduce some of the federal restrictions.
That I do not entirely know. I know Laura and Kevin have been going over those changes and the recommendations that have been made. So as soon as we get more figured out along those lines, we'll definitely be notifying everyone of any changes that will impact the way funding is going down in Florida.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Mitchell, again, for coming. We'll engage in the statewide plan updates. I'm not sure about the deadlines. I will circle back with you later, but yes, we will either plan to attend the Osceola one or the virtual in August, but thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
With that, I'm going to transition to our partner, FDOT. I think Drew covered so greatly in the beginning of today, in his opening remarks about intersections, right? He mentioned the power and kind of linear features that are kind of intersecting with the work that we do. I think the FDOT would be the best example on that. There is a lot that we have been coordinating with them in terms of projects overlap, intersection, in terms of mission, and some very interesting conversations that we are having on a monthly basis through the coordination we do with them. And today they're going to present an update in one specific project. Thank you very much, James, for organizing this session, and I will transition the word to you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's one specific project. It might feel a little anecdotal that we're focusing on one part of the state. My jurisdiction is 5 counties in Southeast Florida. This happens to be our most vulnerable section of state road. It's down in Hollywood, Florida. It's an iconic section of road. If you've been around the area, of course, you'd recognize it. The picture on the opening slide here kind of shows you how beautiful it is. It's special to us and to the local residents. This was an exciting project for us because normally we rely on gravity flow for our storm sewer networks, but that wasn't going to cut it in an area where you have sunny day flooding. And so we had a great consultant team on board. Lindsay here did a great job. Another exciting part of this presentation for me is the fact that the effectiveness of the improvements remain to be seen. It's still under construction. Construction's underway right now. We're dealing with all the challenges of unexpected utilities, the traveling public, the elected officials down there in Hollywood, but we're persevering, and I'm proud of the way that we've persevered, and the consultants in particular who have overcome all the obstacles. But Miami's a separate district. I haven't had projects down there, but they really are on the front lines. They've already built some pumps and raised some roads. We're catching up to them now here in my neck of the woods, and we expect that more of these projects will be coming in the future. So enjoy the presentation. Lindsay?
Thank you, James. And I have to adjust this down because we've got quite the height discrepancy here. Okay. Yeah, so as James mentioned, Lindsay Corin, I'm with RSNH. I was the consultant project manager and engineer of record for these projects. We actually had 3 financially strong projects all under the same construction contract. I was on the lead for 2 out of the 3. So for the agenda, we'll go over the project location overview, a little bit more detail, the background as far as the formative drainage studies that, kind of spurred these pilot projects, stepping into the final design process and the constraints and issues that we had to deal with, the project schedule and cost, as well as the construction update. Because as James mentioned, we currently have 3 different projects under construction right now. So as he mentioned, Hollywood Beach and specifically A1A is known for chronic tidally induced flooding. It's a well-known issue. And for those of you that don't know, A1A abuts the west side of the barrier island. It is a low point on the island, right? So it experiences sheet flow from east to west from that North Surf Road down the city side streets, and experiences that stormwater runoff not only from the east, but the tidal influences to the west where all the outfalls are for the facility. So as we mentioned, 3 FPIDs, which is, the financial project ID for FDOT, and that's how we track these. I am the PM for the 2 northern projects, so A1A at Franklin Street, A1A at Sheridan Street. And then we've got the other consultant, BCC Engineering, was the lead for the 577 project, A1A at Hollywood Boulevard. So we had a total of 4 pump stations that are proposed, 2 at the northern sites, and 1 at each of the northern sites, and 2 at the southern site. So as James mentioned, right, there was a need seen with the initial studies, to alleviate some of this tidally induced flooding. In addition to that, as many of you may know, there is a Broward County Shoreline Resilience Ordinance that says anything abutting the shoreline needs to be elevation 5 NAVD by 2050 if it's either a new installation or a significant repair. So there are areas within the A1A corridor where FDOT right-of-way abuts the natural shoreline where we are adding seawall. There was a major project funding partnership with both the City of Hollywood and Broward County. There's commingled drainage across the Barrier Island. FDOT inherits all of the runoff, as I mentioned, from east to west. So it was really a critical partnership, both from a design funding perspective, but also a construction funding perspective, and getting the locals' feedback as we step through the design process. As I mentioned, there's a total of 4 stormwater pump stations, as well as the seawall and the 2 northern corridors, and the combined project length is almost a mile. So in 2020, I think when the report was published, the existing conditions report through James's district-wide drainage contract, very comprehensive study that was done for the Barrier Island, starting at the county line to the south, all the way north to Dania Beach Boulevard by the state park. So with this, a lot of field reviews were done, especially for the existing seawall and showing what that seawall profile is and where it's at risk of being overtopped by high tides. Isolating the low road elevations, potential overflow locations, an assessment of the existing storm drain system and what condition it's in, as well as the outfalls, the existence of backflow prevention devices, and then, as I mentioned, the contributing areas to the FDOT facility. With that, a ICPR4 model was made, or Stormwise, which it's now called. Very high, it was high level, but it did get in, for this type of study, it did get into the weeds and incorporating LiDAR data, any CAD that was available through existing projects and as-built to make it as robust as possible and trying to identify some of these flooding hotspots. And I think I can play this here. Give me 1 second. Let me turn off the pen. Yeah, I gotta turn off the laser pointer. There we go. So inundation maps were made using that ICPR4 model and integrating it with GIS, which helped as a great visual to show where the flooding hotspots are, where we have these significant areas of inundation, especially over the roadway crown. And I'll pause it here where we've got the peak. So these maps were included in the drainage report just to help with that visual, so it's not just tabular data. It's we're able to visualize this, show it to the funding partners, and kind of have the proof of the need, and the funding that we need to move forward. Okay, let me move on. So from that study, an alternative report was developed, isolating where there's areas of low seawall. The recommendation was to raise it. Looking at backflow prevention devices, where you have these tidally influenced outfalls where you want to have a one-way only flow, that doesn't allow the tide to backflow through our local storm drain system, as well as the repair and replacement of leaking drainage structures, and most importantly, the stormwater pump stations that we identified with the pilot projects. So with that, in the final design, and this is where my team came in, and we had close partnership with James throughout the process, and with the funding partners that I mentioned. So as I mentioned, the seawall installation at the 2 northern sites to elevation 5, we had constraints associated with that, with the many utilities and especially the existing FPL overhead lines. The pump stations that I mentioned, and with the pump stations, it was critical that we look at the storm drain system and, areas that it was leaking, we had to line, or we looked at hydraulic replacement to increase the overall efficiency of the pump stations that we were looking to install. And I'll quickly step through these. So field reviews, here's an example of sunny day, moderate high tide. This is not even a king tide, where you can see on the left the groundwater is permeating through the low-lying swales and coming up into the roadway shoulder. On the right, you've got high tide coming through the storm drain system and popping out through the grate and sitting in the gutter line. So this is not even overtopping the roadway necessarily, It's coming in through the ground itself or through the stormwater system. This is one of our worst sites, so A1A at Franklin Street. This is to the north by Dania Beach Boulevard, and this is, with the public involvement aspect, the most residents we had that were active were from this area. They had a lot of questions, as you can see here in this king tide, and I think, James, your team took these pictures. You can see the crown of the roadway is very much inundated, and this is a truck that's barely able to pass through. And this is not even the highest observed king tide that's happened in Broward County, right? So this is just kind of what we were up against, but that's something that was critical for us to understand with designing the improvements and understanding that the picture on the right, we can't necessarily design a pump to fix that, right? Because it's going to perpetually be running and have no effect and have minimal peak stage reduction. So we had to kind of thread the needle here with the cost efficiency and what we're looking to do with these projects. Here's an example of the southern project, right? These east-west side streets that the city maintains, and similarly like high tide popping up through the storm drain grates. So with us inheriting the Stormwise model from the other consultants, we looked to really refine these and kind of get a good gut check on the pump station sizing we needed, and we really came out hot through the gate to get that under control because with such a short schedule with these projects, we really had to get a handle on the funding because of the local funding agreements, and those that have had to be executed go ahead of the commissions and get approved, right? So we had to come out very quickly with the stormwater modeling. We did a variety of alternative analyses looking at the FDOT indicated design high water, as we found, and to no surprise, right, the king tides and surge tide are much higher than that. So we kind of came up with a very robust alternative analysis to kind of show that cost benefit. And as I mentioned with the Franklin picture, you can design a pump station that costs another $10-15 million, but if you're only seeing a 0.02 foot peak stage reduction, there's no point of spending that much money. So that was kind of critical in the first few months of our project and kind of coming up with an alternative that we could all agree on. This is just a high-level overview of some of the drainage basins and sites that we had to consider. So I'll step through these quickly. But yeah, as I mentioned, pipelining the existing systems, looking at the low-hanging fruit and cheap upgrades that we could do with the hydraulics to increase the overall efficiency of the pump stations. Those were just kind of the critical things that we looked at to start with. And as I mentioned, right, the commingled infrastructure with both the city and the county, either through a closed connection or through overland sheet flow to the A1A facility. And this is the last southern basin here. This is by Hollywood Boulevard. So design challenges, this as as James mentioned, this was a very, very challenging project, especially given an 18-month design schedule between NTP and sign and seal plans. For any engineers that have to obtain permits or look at right-of-way needs or have dealt with FDOT with new pay items or standard specifications, it's difficult, and this is something that we really worked hard with our partners to get this done, and it's that much more fulfilling when it is done after going through all that. But I'll say this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Where we have all these great ideas, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to muscle through these issues and to be able to get something in the ground to benefit the public. So just as I mentioned, right, we had multiple consultants, a total of 6 FPIDs, and that's associated with the many funding sources we had. So it wasn't only state funds, we had multiple federal pots of money, including Protect. I think almost half of the construction funds came from Protect. We had money from Broward County, from the city of Hollywood, both from their CRA and through some of the FDEP resilience grants that they had. So a lot of the schedule stuff too was also associated with the timeline of the funding and making sure that we could capture that. As I mentioned, the cost benefit analyses, we had no right-of-way phase, no new right-of-way, so trying to site really large pump station infrastructure is difficult with no new right-of-way and making sure it's out of the way and accessible. We had maintenance agreements with the city of Hollywood, so after these are installed, it's being handed off to Hollywood to maintain in perpetuity. As James mentioned, the utilities have proven to be the most difficult, critical issue on this job. We are on a barrier island. The infrastructure is extremely old. It's got that salinity factor, right? So everything is inherently super corroded. If you even look at a utility wrong after exposing it, it pops. So we had a lot of coordination with the many utilities. We have a lot of relocations that had to happen ahead of our contractor getting in. So that's something that our CEI and CM team have been doing a really good job to oversee and making sure it happens. As I mentioned, 18-month design schedule. We had our letting back in October 2024, the contract is awarded to the contractor. As I mentioned, with some of these utility items that were in place, we had a little bit of flex time, so the contractor had a delayed NTP, and then the construction groundbreaking was about a year ago in summer 2025. So they are currently, it's one contractor that is at all 3 FPIDs right now, 4 pump station sites, and they're actively working at all locations and kind of working where there's the path of least resistance. So, you know, we're anticipating another year of construction. I get phone calls and emails, I think, almost daily. But yeah, it's been a good challenge. And as James said, you know, we're really excited to see, you know, how impactful it is. And, you know, we're hoping that we can provide some relief to the local residents. The construction cost was almost $35 million. That was the bid from Mastec for all 4 sites. And so this is a construction update. This is, you know, my favorite part of the slides is showing the pictures because that's what I personally care about. So A1A at Sheridan Street, this is our central site. So this is a picture of them installing that, the sheet pile wall. So we're installing that seawall that I mentioned. So the steel sheets getting driven down and then cast later with a concrete bulkhead cap. So this site in particular was challenging because the south of this, we had the FPL overhead lines. So we had to have details to splice the sheets and for them to be able to install it. They also have a really special side grip hammer that you can see in this picture here. I think I've got the laser pointer again. So let's see how we go this time. Here we go. So they're able to grip it from the side and drive it down, and then they bring it back to the top and they can drive it all the way down. But with the limited overhead working room, you know, this we had to put in the plans, you know, you're going to need special equipment to be able to install this infrastructure. So we were able to, this is actually a video I took, and we were able to go out there and see this, which was great. Okay. And so this is the overhead view of the same site. Let me put the laser pointer back on. So where that picture was, you can see my laser pointer. That was at this southwest corner of A1A and Sheridan where they're driving the sheet pile. That is all now installed. They're working on wrapping up phase 1 of the MOT and switching over to phase 2 to install the pump station on the east side of the road where my cursor is. So A1A at Franklin Street, they're currently clearing some of the utilities and waiting for the relocations to be finished, and have cleared the pump station site, and they're working through phase 1 of our construction activities here. And at the southern site, similarly, you know, some of the utility relocations have happened, the pipelining, and clearing the way for the pump station infrastructure to be installed. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions for Lindsay or James? Thank you very much for the update. Thank you for bringing this project. James, I'm not sure if Emily is on the call. Maybe we can wait until the around the table updates. But I think we also talked briefly on they were going to mention what's happening on the RAP, not really a full update, but just the deliverables. So, Emily, are you on the call? Do you want to cover?
I don't have the information.
Yeah.
So I'm not prepared to cover it.
So we can wait until the around the table updates. I think, yeah, the information that Emily would be on the call. So if you are on the call, Emily, let us know. If not, we wait. Yeah, we'll wait. No worries. So with that, we're going to have a break, about 10-minute break. If you have not yet sign in, please make sure you sign in. There is a signing sheet in the front. And I think we have, it's 10:54, so let's come back 11:05. Thank you.
Hey, everyone, we're going to get started soon.
Okay, we're getting ready to start. Uh, thank you. The breaks are always short. Of course, yeah. If you want to send copies. Okay, thank you everyone again for being here. We have 4 more presentations and around the table, so a lot of materials to share, great updates. With that, I'm gonna start my update here. Are we all good, Yvette? Can you hear me
Yes, we're
well?
getting ready to start. Can everyone take their seats, please?
Thank you. Okay, so I'll be one first of the 4 remaining presentations here now after the break. Really great updates that I'm bringing on the district resiliency and flows updates. So beginning with the flows name that you just noticed there. So we established a short name for the new division. The Division of Flood Protection and Water Supply Planning. It's a long name, so just trying to make sure that we streamline this aspect of just naming the entire team here and really working with the other internal teams. So just reinforcing also some of the points that Drew presented. I think we have been laser focused on our mission from day one in terms of how we integrate resiliency into planning. And now we are really expanding in terms of advancing planning and also supporting implementation efforts from both the water supply and the flood control sides. So really working closely with the internal teams, our partners at the local, state, tribal, and federal levels, and really continue to advance the best in terms of water supply and flood control planning, integrating those changing conditions, right? And those aspects of resiliency to support risk-informed decision-making, and also coordinating the implementation through funding applications and managing several of the resiliency grants that we have as part of our team roles here. Some additional updates. We have 3 summer interns, so 3 new interns working with us. Really great. We are learning a lot from them and exposing them as much as possible to the work we do here in our group and other internal groups. So Theresia, she's PhD student at the University of Miami, and her research is in regional extremes and climate services. We also have Sushma here from University of South Florida with a master's in science and artificial intelligence. So she's doing research in AI analytics and machine learning, also working very closely with our teams here. And we have Nicole Pimenta, Master of Science in Geosciences from FAU, and her research is GIS and also climate science. So really happy to have the 3 interns here and hoping they get the most of this experience with us. We also hosted a division field trip. I wanted just to reinforce the great participation from the team and say thank you for everyone involved. We did visit the L31 flowway, the Cutler Wetlands, and the Deering State, and the overall Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands project. So really great visit and another great experience from us in learning as well from the other internal teams. Beginning with the updates from the data analysis, water and climate resilience metrics perspective, We are at full speed mode completing the 2027 SFER report. I would guess we are 70 to 80% complete. I didn't check this number with the team, but last time I spoke to them, I was already seeing draft chapters very far along. So 2A focusing on the water year, hydrology, water management, and event summaries. And we have 2B on long-term trends in sub-daily rainfall, some new data that we were able to capture in our observed data, flooding events, again, advancing in the way that we assess and evaluate flood recurrence, water quality, and algae blooms. So key dates here is really November is the public review period. We're going to be sharing with you all for input. And then publication date is March. It seems far. It's not far. We're really working at full speed mode to complete all of this for the internal review beginning August 1st. Oh, no. Yeah, I believe it's on August 1st, the day that we deliver all of that. We also are organizing a training. There are new tools, new functionalities, and new data, ways of looking at the data in our portal here, our hub. So we are really just planning to share data and information that we use to support regional resiliency planning. So a hybrid session is scheduled for July 29, 9 a.m. here in our headquarters with the virtual option through Teams. There is a link here for registration if you are interested to join. All the participants that attend the Flood Tools training who previously confirmed interest will be automatically included in the training and will receive communications. So thank you, the team here, and Nicole, for organizing this training as well. With regards to the water supply vulnerability assessment update, we made some progress in terms of preparing input data for the model, and the groundwater modeling team is finalizing some of the peer review comments. We are very close to run those scenarios that we have been planning for quite some years now, but then the anticipated timeline for the model, the groundwater model that we call ECSM runs, is really to begin in the late summer. We are to our future conditions internal work group. We are looking at the drought scenarios, and we are right now running some of the regional models, official models, to fully represent those scenarios that we pre-selected, and to evaluate what's the system response, to understand if those scenarios are really representing drought, not only from the meteorological perspective, but also from the hydrology, groundwater perspective. So we are testing right now some of those data sets and working very closely with the WRSM team and our groundwater modeling team. Update on the Upper East Coast water supply plan. We have 5-year update here with demands projected to 2050. This is the first of the 5 plans that are done in a 5-year cycle, so we're restarting the cycle this year. Martin and San Lucie counties, full counties are part of the plan, as well as the northern portion of the Okeechobee County. So 17 major utilities with major agricultural industry. We have very important natural and water resources there, C23, 24, and 25 canals, the San Lucie River and estuary, the Indian River Lagoon, and the North Fork of the Loxahatchee River. We hosted 2 workshops, public meetings already, April 28 on demands, initial data, and then June 18, just a few days ago, on some of the SUR projects, some of the planning assumptions, additional details on planning assumptions, and also MFLs. So this plan is scheduled to be finalized and submitted for approval in November 2026 to our governing board. Just a brief update. The next plan cycle is Lower West Coast, and we have been initiating informal requests. We sent letters to all the stakeholders, major stakeholders, last week to begin this initial information request to prepare for the plan. For the cooperative funding program, last time we met here, we mentioned about projects that were being ranked and reviewed by our team. We submitted that to the governing board. They were approved on May 14. And then we submitted the recommendations from our governing board to FDEP on May 26. No change in numbers here. That's the same summary presented from last time. And now waiting for DEP in terms of the next steps for those cooperative funding program projects. Switching from water supply to flood. control here and the updates on the flood protection level of service program. We have 3 ongoing phase 1 flood vulnerability assessments. So Western Basins, Hendry and Collier, Taylor Creek, Nublin Slough for Okeechobee and Martin, and we have the Caloosahatchee, Charlotte, Lee, Glades, and Hendry counties. So initiating the 3rd one and working on current conditions and calibration and validation for the additional 2 studies. For phase 2, we completed the C7 basin, which was the portion remaining on Reach B. So we are just uploading the final files in SMMS right now. And we also completed targeted FPLOS phase 2 study for the Upper Kissimmee Basin in Osceola and Orange counties. This was done in support of the Resiliency Implementation Planning and HMGP post-disaster project applications. So it's now currently under review by DM, but we were able to complete the whole assessment using the FPLOS tools here. And almost, I would say, completing a phase 2 for this targeted number of projects that were part of the post-disaster assessments. We have a combined phase 1 and 2 study in San Lucie and Martin counties. The Loxahatchee current conditions is ongoing right now, and then the San Lucie portion of the model is in calibration and validation. I did mention that I would cover a little bit on the compound flooding. We are now coordinating with ERDEC. We have a project that was approved for funding last year. We are going through the final review on budget and some of the information needed for the agreement and going through their council's review right now. So really looking forward to initiate this project within the next 3-6 months in collaboration with ERDEC and also working closely with the Florida Flood Hub. There is a lot of effort going on at the state, and our goal here is to establish a way of looking at that with some consistency and similar assumptions. We have done quite an extensive coordination between the water management districts and Florida Flood Hub on this topic on the last, I would say, a month or so, 2 months, really trying again to understand what tools are out there, approaches are out there, assumptions that we need to make, and how we start getting deliverables from those models in a way that is consistent and we can speak statewide in a more uniform way. So more to come. Hopefully in the next update we can have really concrete project deadlines here and a schedule. Moving to the CNSF, Flood Resiliency Studies, Section 203. The study is now under the Assistant Secretary of the Army for the final review. The study has the recommended plan and 30 to 35% design plans for 8 structures, 3 canals, and monitoring stations, a total of 13 construction packages. So we received cost certification from Walla Walla, Cost Engineering Mandatory Center of Expertise in late in April, and we transmitted the Integrated Feasibility Report and Environmental Assessment to ASA also late in April, that is currently under review. So a significant progress here in the Broward Basins, Reach A. And this is just a transmittal ceremony that was hosted in Broward County between our Executive Director, Drew Bartlett, and Commissioner Furr here just to transmit this entire document to ASA for their final review. Switching to now Reach C in Miami. This is the Section 216 authority. We are working with the Jacksonville District. We are currently doing final array of alternatives, and the modeling efforts are being advanced for the project alternatives in all the 5 basins. We have initial draft engineering scoping, some also stepping into the economic analysis through the HEC FDA, exploring some sensitivity testing that is being required for us to fully get the output out of this economic models as well. And then we are planning an upcoming public meeting later in July. I'm sure Jennifer Smith here and Tim Geisen on the phone will be covering that with more details next. Now entering our plan update. So developing all those studies, but really to bring together back into the resiliency plan. So we are as mentioned in the past, we're not updating the whole plan this year, but we are implementing a projects dashboard. Is really, this tool is going to support us on updating the status and scope refinements to all the projects that we have on the plan on an annual basis. We'll have a presentation right after me from Aaron, who is leading this effort. So a very strong approach here in terms of just taking care of the database that we have and maintaining it in a good status in terms of any actions in terms of how we are implementing those projects. So all of the progress made, for instance, in 203, 216 studies, additional designs that were completed are all captured in the tool. And this tool is also going to help us on tracking all the county LMS projects list, the status of those projects, and really providing the update to the local mitigation strategy committees in each county. The document itself continues to be the 2025, and you can access to this link provided in this slide. In terms of projects implementation, lots of those through the grants that we receive. So FDM, FEMA, HMGP, BRIC, and FDP Resilient Florida grants were awarded for C7, C8, C9. Those are the structures in REACH B. So S27, S28, and S29 structures. We are under final FEMA review for the design. We submitted the final design, and we are pending some of the final review from FEMA. And then the closeout for the design portion, phase 1 of the grant, and hoping to advance the phase 2 construction grant agreement within the next 3-4 months. We have several land negotiations going on. We completed the land negotiation for C7. We are undergoing an additional temporary land that we need there. We are also working with Miami-Dade County very closely on the land for the S29 project, and continuing to work with the Village of Miami Shores on the S28. We are planning to start construction for all these 3 projects in 2027. We have some photos here on the right too on some of the site visits that we did recently to the project sites. With DEP Resilient Florida Grants implementation, additional grants, we have 3 new grant awards. Actually, 2 are for the projects that I just mentioned. And we completed closeout visits for the 3 projects that we received funding, ARPA funds. So those are our initial Resilient Florida funded projects. We are completing 3 of them and really working on closeout. This is great news. Is exciting to be really getting here with the completion of 3 important projects. For the FDP Innovative Tech Grant, we have the White Pipe project, the testing of some of the technologies, innovative technologies along the C9 canal. We have the construction nearly completed. We have all the trenches and the materials in place, and we are hoping to initiate monitoring on the water quality aspects and test those technologies beginning in July 2026. And finally, still on the hazard mitigation grant program, we have a post-disaster implementation. It's a typo there. We have 8 projects right now under review under the post-disaster. These are from Ian and Milton hurricanes. They are tier 2 and tier 3. And we have 1 watershed master plan planning project under review right now. Here is just some photos of our first Resilient Florida implementation project completion. So it was the Corby Levee update in Palm Beach County. We got grant funding support from DEP and also from Palm Beach County, and we attended a ribbon cutting ceremony organized by the Indian Trail District on June 1st. So again, just celebrating this important accomplishment and really recognizing the project team here that worked to ensure that this was completed. We have one more implementation project success, which is our engine control panel hardening with funding support from Resilient Florida as well. I purposely made the photos hash here and not good resolution because we are not supposed to be sharing internal pumps photos, but those are the panels that are installed. We did the site visits, the grant closeout site visits, and all the final grant closeout sites. So again, recognizing the project team and the accomplishments here, and of course the partnership with Florida DEP. Transitioning to just wet season, dry season. So we ended our dry season mid-May. We have rescinded all the water shortage warnings that were issued earlier in the year for Collier, Glades, Highlands, Lee, Miami-Dade, and Monroe County. We are right now with no water shortage update, and we are preparing a 2026 water shortage report that we'll be sharing with you all after. But good news, there were good rain the beginning of this wet season, and levels were recovered in these three main areas of concern. And we are in an I would say, decent good shape right now in terms of water levels. And transitioning to the wet season. So as I mentioned, the wet season started officially on May 15th this year, the dynamic wet season. And as you can see, good rain, not in a lot of rain. We are on the 75% there comparing to the normal for this time of the year. So decent amount, but still hoping for a little bit more rain. Hurricane season is starting June 1st, and then king tide season is starting August 10. So just monitoring those wet season and coordination that is needed and preparation that is needed. For the king tide season specifically, we will resume the weekly king tide forecasts in August. We have here already flagged the key dates, and this year we are splitting and really providing this peak dates, estimated peak dates for each of the areas. So East Coast, Florida Keys, and West Coast, really great work from the project team as well to really make sure that we show the windows. We did see some significant shifts last year and kind of different timings of the peaks between the three regions. So trying to get the information as closer as possible and anticipate those dates for the different counties in our area. We completed the flood observations and high water mark survey trainings very successfully as well. One more kudos and thank you for the project team. We had record participation this year with 153 participants representing 7 counties and almost 100 people just being from those counties, external staff. We had 6 sessions throughout our region, and we really want to thank here the flood observations team, including the trainers, the reviewers, the expert support provided, staff from our division flows, survey and map, geospatial, and the external affairs team. And thank you, of course, for the participation from all the local governments. We are stepping into the wet season with really good coordination. Here are the links and the barcodes here to access both the flood observations, so report flooding and early concerns, and the high water mark survey. This is all part of our South Florida Flood Information Resource. We have a lot of that already integrated to local counties' web pages and communication. So again, looking to combine all this information in this repository and have a great coverage in terms of flooding impacts, potential impacts throughout the season. The same system is now providing automatic updates to the counties when we receive any flood observations. So this was also covered during the training. All the partners having now access to the tool with the accounts and the proper setup to receive those notifications. So anytime we receive any flood observation within each jurisdiction, the partners are being informed at the same time that we are receiving. And again, if your organization does not have, for any reason, access to this, just update the contact information and reach out to us. We're going to make sure you have the full access there. And one important notice here is those flood reports are not part of emergency response. They are really shared for awareness, information purposes. We do use for planning. We share this information with water managers, but this is not the official emergency preparedness or response process. As I mentioned, Amy, during your question early on, we continue to work closely with the Florida Flood Hub. I think their team is also working with us, trying to understand what the tool is collecting now and how this can be integrated to the statewide process. So no change. We do not anticipate any change on the effort that we are doing here, and hopefully to streamline and do this integration with the state effort on a very, I would say, no trouble, no complex way. On the Florida Silver Jackets, we are repeating here some of the slides also presented by Chuck, Dr. Jacoby, but really working very closely with the Florida Flood Hub on this flood observations project. We did send the survey. That's why Amy asked the question. So why are you collecting this information? We want to share everything and how those tools exist in the state with the Florida Flood Hub and wrap up this effort statewide. This will guide the process that the state will take and how they will be setting up this tool at the state level. So as a future integration, we really expect our tools and data to be integrated, fully integrated into the statewide system. And we're really helping to gather information about those local efforts and sharing experience, tools, and lessons learned with the project team. Another project also, I think it was covered, but from the Florida Flood Hub, we have the Flood Modeling Community Guidebook. We provided excellent input and rounds of review to the coordination with the core FDM and the project team in general. So there is a draft guidebook that is now under review. There is excellent content that will support this entire flood inventory. So all the tools that we have in the state right now and how we can leverage those resources to continue to advance in terms of tools and flood risk understanding statewide. My last slide here is also a little bit overlapping with messages from the Florida Flood Hub. So we mentioned that we are going to be mapping this flood recurrence. We have a pilot project, and that's also the process that we're going to use to provide value-added flood products from ISI to local governments. So through derivative projects. So this pilot approach is going to be using all the crowdsourcing tools that we have where flooding is reported or identified through the ISISR sources. The approach is building upon the next red cells, really trying to also correlate somehow with the rainfall that we are observing in those cells later on. So really supporting this flood mapping when observations are found. The flood occurrence will continue to be mapped using our flood observation tools, the high water marks, also USGS high water marks database. We have a social media that it was EURISA, now is named GPN. So really social media volunteers that are integrating data into this database. And then the SAR, the ISI data. We are allowed to do 2 initial events testing this season. So for the 2 first events that we received data from ISI, we're going to be running this pilot methodology and sharing with the local governments in terms of what we learn and how data is being collected. One message that the team is asking me to reinforce is that where we are seeing a yes, meaning where we see that we have evidence of flood, we're going to make sure that the process is robust enough to say yes. We know we have data to say this is a yes flood, but we might not have the ability to capture the full extent of flood yet. So we might have areas that were yes, but it's not, we didn't receive the data not fully added to the tool, so not intended to be fully representative of the full extent of the flooding areas. But again, a very strong process, and looking forward to those to continue to process data and evaluate this through this wet season. With that, I want to open for questions if anybody has in terms of our updates. Yes.
Just clarity. So the ICE data, the ICI data is, you're just modeling like this season and then you're going to have maps available next season, or is
No,
that...
we're going to do 2 events right after the event. So 2 pilot testing. So in the past, we used to do just the full post-event evaluation at the end of the season because we would capture all of that and produce this kind of year or wet season summary of the event and update all the flood occurrence areas we used to call flood prone areas in our database. But we're now, because of this new approach that we're implementing to help look at long-term floods anyway, and also on the need to produce this derivative of the SAR image we're going to do after each event. That's the plan. We're going to automate a process to do after each event, and we're going to make that product available to the local governments.
And what's the timing of that?
It's right after the event. I mean, I don't have a timeline in mind. I don't know if we got to the point of understanding a week. Yeah, about a week, maybe two, right after the event, that we can post-process QA/QC and deliver the information. But we'll let you know in terms of timeline. But maybe 1 to 2 weeks after the event. Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, Sonia.
Hi, can you repeat the dates for the water metrics training?
Yes, let me go back there. It's July 29, if I'm not wrong. No, it's before. Sorry. So yeah, July 29, 9 a.m. here in the auditorium or via Teams. Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? Great. If not, I will invite Aaron then to come and present on our next agenda item, which is the dashboard tool that I mentioned on our plan update. This is a great, really great progress that we made this year. We're going to be sharing this information with you, and thank you, Aaron, for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Marin. Okay, so I'm going to be giving a quick update on the sea level rise and flood resiliency plan, and hopefully getting into a demonstration of the dashboard that has been mentioned before here. So, quick 2026, ignore that 0 that's in the middle there. We're not at that year yet, but quick 2026 project updates. Since the 2025 plan was updated, we mainly have projects coming from the C7 Phase 2 project, which we can introduce, which will include a structure replacement, canal enhancements, interbasin storage into our planning projects. Moving on to status changes, we have some that are now in the completed phase that were mentioned before: Corbett Levee, the S2, S3, S4, S7, S8 control panels, and the BCB microwave tower. Into construction, Homestead Field Station, S169 West structure resiliency, and a few from the coastal structure enhancement and self-preservation mode resiliency. I'm going to go through these pretty quick here. And into design, S27, S29, S28, the L8 FEB and G539 pump station, and as well as the Section 203 study that Dr. Marin presented on in the presentation beforehand. So, and then into planning and feasibility, we have the 216 study, the feasibility report for the 203, and the targeted FPLS Phase 2 for the Upper Kissimmee Basin. So for more information specific on these projects, please reach out to our group and we'll be happy to answer some of those questions. But just highlighting some of the changes from the 2025 plan that was released last year. So just very quickly, I know some of the text and these maps are a little hard to really dive into, but just to show some of the movement in our project. So in the very light teal, light green is our planning projects. And then you can see in the southeast coast in the purple on the map on your left that we're moving into design on many of these projects. And the yellow is going to show into completion. The purple I'm kind of including construction and design together in there. So projects that have moved into that implementation phase. So, as Dr. Murrin said here, for 2026, we're not going to have a publication document, but instead we're going to replace that with a dynamic dashboard tool that will be used to further coordinate with our partners around the district here. And so, just as a refresher for the plan, we kind of have two different bins here. What I'll refer to as a project, as a resiliency project, will refer mainly to the watershed that is in focus. And within that watershed, we have project components or components that will be points, lines, polygons that are going to represent the structure improvements, monitoring sites, canal enhancements, increased water storage, etc. So those components are going to be the individual adaptation strategies, and I'll refer to, usually when I refer to a project here, that's going to be more on that basin level, maybe project impact area, so you see it kind of go beyond the basin that we're defining here. So, and I want to emphasize that this is focused on resiliency projects, so there are going to be other district projects around the region. So within this dashboard, it's mainly for filtering down to areas of interest or types of projects of interest that you might be looking for, and so you can get down to those components that are within those projects. So starting with the first filter on the project impact area name or project name. So usually these have a name that corresponds with a watershed around the district, if you're familiar. And so within that first filter, you're going to be able to pick one or multiple watershed projects and filter down to the components that are within those locations. Multiple filters I'll go through here for, like I said, project name into project origin or project type, whether that's coming from the FPOLS program, the Section 203, a combination, post-event is going to be through one filter. The implementation phase, so whether it's in complete construction, design, or planning, and down to a county as well. And so that list will actually only include counties that intersect with our district. So I'll give you a little demonstration on that soon. So within the dashboard information, as of right now, we're going to have the project name, component name, along with identifiers, unique identifiers for both those attributes, a component description that's very thorough, feature type, implementation status, design phase, permitting statuses, funding status, the state asset ID if it applies, and location, some geometry with it, and flood zones. And I think LMS will be coming soon as well. I think we need to just make sure we're good on our coordination with that with our partners, and more within there. And I just want to make it known that there are 2 available downloads for this tool, whether it be in a table format, and that can be, you'll see it's dynamic with the filtering if you're only interested in the projects that, or there is a specific set of projects that you're interested in, as well as a geospatial download for all of the features that are a part of the plan. So with that, I'm going to jump into the demonstration. So I'm going to try and get out of here. Yes, success. Okay. And I know the words on here are going to be a little hard for folks in the room to see, so just bear with me a little bit. And actually, I'm going to have to look pretty far myself here. But these features in here, you can go through the attributes and pick different watersheds, which will zoom you to those features. We'll have the points, that are point components associated with that project. Those will include the structure enhancements, monitoring sites, linear components. So these are going to be canal enhancements or levee enhancements as well, and storage components too. So within these filters, they're meant to work dynamically, so we can have multiple watersheds selected here. and to reset that selection, we can go here. And as well as, well, let me go through a couple of these here. Component origin as well. So you can go through a few of these or multiple again. In the reset implementation phase here, start with complete construction, design, and planning. Funding status, as well as county, if you want to go in and look at components that are within a county alone here. And finally, component search. So if you're familiar with the canal name or structure name and want to just jump to that, that will work as well. So, and then one more thing on the filtering. So if there's these filters can work together if there are, if it matches a component. So I would say for folks using this, take caution. You might run into a situation I'm showing you here where I picked a C7. We don't have complete projects, but we do have planning. So you might get zeros here, but these can work interactive too. And I just strongly suggest if the research is, if you want to research to start, just reset all of these. They should have select mentioned here. And you know you're kind of back at the start of this. Again, to point out the downloads here for an Excel file with the 3 dots on the table, as well as a download geodatabase, will just take you to the site that allows you to download all of the features so it's going to be the project impact areas, but most importantly, the points, lines, and polygons that represent all of the adaptation strategies. One last thing about this, on the right here, you'll see the 3 tables also showing the points, lines, and polygons here. And that is meant to work dynamically to be able to jump right to a project as well. So this is really, all of this is, and one more thing, you'll see this filtered as well as you're selecting through projects. So you can jump right to these features that are of interest. So this tool is meant to increase the collaboration around the district. So a couple of notes here. One, projects that are in planning are subject to a lot of change over the course of their lifetime. So we really wanted this opportunity, this interactive mapping tool to be accessible for our partners to be able to access and overlap the projects that they have in mind, and start collaboration with the district over planning for each region. And with that, I think I can go to questions. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Pretty simple. Like I said, straightforward. Give it a spin. And it's pretty cool. So yeah, take a look at your region, and any kind of questions, please reach out to us. So we will have a public comment period through Friday, July 24th, so about a month from now, to view this. And those comments, questions, recommendations, any way that this, if you have any recommendations on how this tool can further support this collaboration, please send those to resiliency at sfwmd.gov. And we're happy to continue this collaboration. I would say this is a tool that will likely be updated once a year. So we've gone through our updates. The information that is on there is through June 1st. I think we're going to have one more update on August 1st, which will be mentioned on the dashboard. And then from there on out, we're going to try and do a yearly update as well. And with that, I'd just like to thank Danielle Vipon from Water Supply Planning and Alexandra Hoffart from Geospatial Services, as well as my team that put in a whole lot of work for the QA/QC and providing me the information. Once you start navigating around the dashboard, you'll see that I think there's about 25 fields for all of these components describing them. So just a huge effort from our resiliency team. And then I've got to extend that out to a lot of staff at the district that helps promote and move along our plan every year. I think if you've seen the document, it's about a whole page of folks that are working on this project. So there's a lot of appreciation to go around. So again, let's start playing with it. Any kind of questions, please send to our group, and we'd be happy to go from there. With that, do we have any questions, immediate questions in the room?
Any questions? No?
Cool.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you again for your work and putting this tool together. I think that will be a great way to communicate throughout those years until we have a major update again in 4 years. With that, I'm excited to invite Alana Irvin from the City of Boynton Beach. She has a great presentation on all their flood resiliency initiatives. And yes, we're going to bring, as we always try to bring, one example of those local governments developing all those assessments and tools, and they have an extraordinary effort here to share with us today. So thank you, Alana, for joining.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Moran. Good morning, I guess almost afternoon, everybody. My name is Alana Irwin. I am the Sustainability and Resiliency Administrator for the City of Boynton Beach, Florida. And I'm here today to talk about some of the flood resiliency initiatives that we've taken in our community. Just to give you a brief overview, for those of you that maybe aren't as familiar with where the City of Boynton Beach is, we are a coastal community located in Palm Beach County, southeast Palm Beach County to be specific. We are the third largest municipality in Palm Beach County with a population of around 82,000. And our geographic and physical characteristics were about 16 and a half square miles. Our average elevation is about 10 to 20 feet above sea level, depending on where you are. And we are about 60 miles north of Miami. Just wanted to talk about Boynton Beach's flood risk. We have a pretty high flood risk in compared to some of the other communities in the area. We face significant impacts from storm water, coastal sunny day flooding, king tide, as well as rainfall events. We have several FEMA designated flood zones in our community, varying from AE to VE and X, and we do have some special flood hazard areas, which I'll be talking about a little later. We've had some major flooding events that have occurred. Most recently, we had the severe rainfall event earlier this year that brought up to 5 inches of rain in our community, and streets were flooded all along our Seacrest Boulevard corridor, which required us to deploy some teams to remove some of the floodwaters so roads could be passable. There's been a lot of mitigation efforts that we've actually been a part of. Palm Beach County, through the local mitigation strategy, has helped us get FEMA grant funding of about $1.7 million for various drainage projects, and I'll be talking about those in a little bit as well. So what have we done to address flooding? Over the past decade, we've done a lot of work in the city of Boynton Beach to actually understand what is our flood risk. We've done vulnerability assessments. We have a watershed master plan. We participate in the voluntary CRS program. We have, I'm going to be showcasing some of our prioritized stormwater improvement projects as well as some of our grant funded projects today. Through the coordinated effort and planning and intentional use of the available funding, we've made efforts to streamline the delivery of critical flood mitigation projects, reduce flooding impacts, while proactively addressing the long-term climate and infrastructure risks. And this is a lot of the reason why we are attending forums such as this today to help continue that partnership and to continue that collaboration to make sure that we are adequately addressing flood risk in our community. So I'm going to start with our vulnerability assessment. We conducted this vulnerability assessment back in 2021 as part of the Coastal Resilience Partnership of Southeast Palm Beach County. This was spearheaded by our colleagues at the Palm Beach County now Division of Built Environment Risk Reduction, as well as other municipalities such as Boca Raton, Delray Beach, etc. And we created a comprehensive vulnerability assessment that assessed flood risk. Now, this project was actually completed right before the Resilient Florida program was implemented. So we had to come back in 2021 and get additional grant funding to help make sure that this this report was compliant with the Resilient Florida effort. So this was really exciting for us as communities in the southeast area of Palm Beach County, because this was one of the first of its kind to actually address flooding and vulnerability at the community level. And we also looked at other threats as well. We looked at flooding, we looked at storm surge, extreme heat, high wind, drought, algal blooms. There were 12 total climate-related impacts that were assessed. And it was really foundational for the city of Boynton Beach's adaptation planning, as well as other municipalities within our region. So we face significant climate risks due to our topography, aging infrastructure, proximity to water bodies. We have several canals that move throughout the city, and it's really important to us that we're looking at this holistically to identify our actual vulnerability to some of these threats. So some of the strategies we've undertaken, we've been looking at infrastructure. We've done some recession indexing for shorelines to better understand what we can do for our coastal protections. We don't have a lot of coastline in our city in particular, so it's been fairly simple, but we do have a lot of residential impacts along our intracoastal waterway that have made it really important for us to make sure that we're addressing some of these king tide events that do happen in our community. We've also been looking holistically through our capital improvements program, or our CIP, to upgrade our stormwater systems and promote aspects like septic to sewer conversions, especially in those areas that have high groundwater inundation. So it's really important for us that we're looking at our infrastructure and looking at ways to make it adaptable and be able to take on additional water in the event that we have changes to rainfall amounts, and as well as other types of flooding from up above and down below. We've also been looking a lot at land use and policy. We're trying to develop programs that incentivize green infrastructure as well as low impact development on both private and public projects. We've been working on a green swale assessment project that allows us to understand what ideal plantings are for green infrastructure, as well as ideal locations. And we're hoping to, in the next year or so, launch some pilot projects, almost like demonstration projects, to show that green infrastructure works as a way to reduce flooding impacts in our community, and hoping by that lead by example approach, we can encourage development, redevelopment projects, as well as private residents to come in and do the same thing for their communities, or for their homes, to reduce flooding as well. We've also increased our work towards increasing our urban tree canopy. In the forums in the past, I've talked about our urban heat resilient strategy. The long-term goal is to increase our tree canopy to mitigate the effects of extreme heat. And extreme heat and flooding do kind of go hand in hand when you're looking at it from a green infrastructure perspective. We've also worked to design adaptation action areas and focus more resources on vulnerable neighborhoods, as well as expanding engagement through community workshops or incentive programs to encourage some of this development to occur in our community. And obviously aligning planning with new and existing funding opportunities. We've done a lot of work with that to make sure that our plans are up to date, our projects are up to date, and align with best practices from a flood resilience effort. And most recently, we were awarded the $150,000 Resilient Florida Program grant to update the CCVA from 2021 to align with the statutory requirements that were updated in 2024. So we're really excited to start working on this project and get our vulnerability assessment updated to better our projects. I want to take a minute to talk about the CRS program. The CRS program is FEMA's voluntary incentive program. It rewards communities for implementation of floodplain management practices that help reduce flood risk. Right now, Boynton Beach is at a Class 5 rating, which provides residents a 25% discount on NFIP premiums for all policyholders in the special flood hazard areas. So some of these things that we've done under this program is we developed and implemented the city's first watershed master plan to take a holistic hydrologic look at the city and come up with a way to better plan our projects with modeling and to see what we can expect from increased rain events, as well as some of the more impervious surfaces that we have. We've also been working with our floodplain management to enforce higher regulatory standards. We've also, we have a public outreach and education program. We have an annual hazard flood brochure, which is pictured on the slide here, that we distribute to targeted areas that do have increased flooding, as well as we have these brochures located at City Hall and other public locations to make sure that residents have access to flood information. We also have a website that expresses some of this information as well. We have the Public Information Program, or the PPI. We have regular stakeholder meetings with community members to update our outreach strategies, talk about every year should we update the CRS flood hazard information pamphlet, or what changes do we need to make? We get that feedback firsthand from members of the community that are exposed to some of those flood risks. So it's a really exciting program. And like I said, with our stormwater and infrastructure projects, we have ongoing stormwater systems. We've been utilizing work from the local mitigation strategy of Palm Beach County, submitting project applications to ensure that we can get funding for these projects to continue moving them forward. And we've identified our repetitive loss areas and have done targeted outreach and efforts, as well as trying to identify CIP projects to make sure that those repetitive loss areas are at reduced risk. So overall, the CRS program has provided us with improved flood resilience, public safety, and community awareness related to flooding. So like I said, we're at a 5 right now. With the completion of the Watershed Master Plan, we've also done a floodplain species assessment and subsequent floodplain species plan. We have enough of the requisite points to earn a Class 4 rating in the CRS, which would provide an additional 5% discount on insurance premiums for residents in those special flood hazard areas. We're just waiting for the program administration contract between FEMA and their contractors to be renewed. So once we renewed, we will officially be a Class 4 community and the first Class 4 community in Palm Beach County. So we're really excited for that. All the efforts of the CRS program have really just given Boynton Beach an opportunity to make sure that we're giving our residents enough information and enough resources to mitigate flooding. Very valuable program. If you're not participating, I highly encourage to look into it. So now I'm going to talk about our Watershed Master Plan. This is a citywide stormwater and watershed management strategy. This was to help us reduce flooding, obviously meet the CRS requirements, and prepare for heavy rain events and sea level rise. It provided science-based guidance for current and future scenarios, which at the time were 2040, 2070, and 2100, using NOAA's sea level rise scenarios. Some of the key challenges that were identified in this Watershed Master Plan is highly vulnerable areas were highly vulnerable to rainfall-induced flooding, especially in the areas east of I-95 and those older neighborhoods that maybe don't have the same type of infrastructure to adapt to that increased capacity of rainfall that may occur with potential changes to the climate. We also noticed that city flood stages are highly influenced by regional structures. That's that canal system that I was talking about throughout our community that runs through it. That's managed by the Lake Worth Drainage District. So we have increased communications with the Lake Worth Drainage District and coordination to make sure that we're on the same page to reduce some of the impacts from flooding in our community along those canal structures. We've also identified that rising groundwater in addition to sea level and rainfall can have a significant impact in our community. And also with decreased infiltration, this could see an increase in flooding events from 2040 to 2100 if we stay in the do nothing scenario. So it's really important for us to look at everything not just from a rainfall or a sea level rise focus, but also looking at that groundwater inundation piece, because if we aren't doing that, then we're still going to be experiencing some flooding, especially from some of those heavy rain events where the water table rises. And our elevation is not very high in some of those areas. We have areas along our intercoastal community that are basically at sea level or maybe a couple feet above sea level. So that water table is really close to the surface, and it makes it really challenging if we don't address those right away. Our watershed master plan also addressed the aging and incomplete stormwater infrastructure in many neighborhoods, and what they did a model to show what that would look like if, again, with the do nothing scenario, what flooding would look like in those neighborhoods given various projections. So overall, we've been implementing scientific, adaptive, a holistic watershed strategy to recognize how the city of Boynton Beach, obviously we aren't just relying on ourselves. We have to collaborate and coordinate with other partners like the South Florida Water Management District, the Lake Worth Drainage District, as well as other municipal and county partners to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to address some of these flood concerns that are at risk in our community. So just quickly, I want to go through what some of the recommended strategies were. So structurally, the recommendations from the Watershed Master Plan were to look at large-scale multi-year resilience projects. So with flooding, we need to look at stormwater management. I'm going to be talking about a few of the projects in a minute, about some of the prioritized projects that we've done so far to address flooding. We're also looking at we need to look at neighborhood improvements as well. So a lot of the approaches that we've done with our CIP is when we go to do capital improvement programs, we're not just going in to do a stormwater project. We're not just going in to do an improvement to the water distribution system. We're going in and we're looking at everything. We're going to try to do wastewater, drinking water, and stormwater, looking at the swales, looking at exfiltration, or what other measures we can do while improving the entire system as a whole in these neighborhoods. And we've found great success because we don't have to keep coming back and getting more funding. If we just package everything together in our CIP, we're able to be more effective and reduce the cost and the timeline of our projects. And again, coordination, improving communications with South Florida Water Management, Lake Worth Drainage District on when canals are going to be operated. Trying to get a better understanding of what we can do, maybe get an assessment on if outfalls in certain areas or maybe need improvement. These are just some communications that we're starting to bring to the table so we can improve all of the aspects of the city structurally. Other non-structural measures is updates to our stormwater manual and level of service planning. Try to strengthen redevelopment regulations and emphasize on-site retention as well as water quality treatment. So that way we don't have as much stormwater going into the system and inundating our system and causing more flooding or potential other environmental impacts like sanitary sewer overflows. So trying to get development to meet us at the source and find ways for them to treat their stormwater or retain their stormwater or reuse their stormwater to help make sure that we're not adding volume to our system that puts us at more of a risk as well. And then continuing to participate in resilience partnerships with the climate compact with the county, the local mitigation strategy, as well as the South Florida Water Management District and the resiliency forums. So just bringing in that partnership and collaboration is just as critical as some of the infrastructure enhancements that we have. And doing assessments on nature-based and green infrastructure, really important to make sure that we're finding innovative solutions to put water in places where it belongs and not inundating our system. So now I'm just quickly going to talk about some of the prioritized projects. These were projects that my team identified as some of the most critical to some of the flood resilience work that we've done. So the first installation I'm going to be talking about is at our Betty Thomas Park. This is in the southern portion of our city along the Federal Highway corridor. And in this particular project, there were so many complaints in this community about flooding. The way that the system was designed, it was just inefficient and inadequate as far as retention of water, and it would flow into the neighborhood. So they installed two different systems. The first system was 400 feet of 15-inch exfiltration pipe, as well as 60 feet of 6-inch solid pipe, and then 4 French drain pipe catch basins and 2 manhole basins. And it was designed to accommodate, it was designed to potentially accommodate for future features, such as drainage fill in the open field, so effectively converting Betty Thomas Park to potentially a stormwater park down the road. So we designed it to have that option in mind to expand stormwater storage in the event that we have a heavy rain event. It reduces the runoff because it goes towards Betty Thomas Park instead of towards the residents. So that was a really exciting and a great add-on for this project because it gives us that opportunity to grow the scope if we need to. And then the second system was just 280 feet of 8-inch pipe as well as 60 feet of exfiltration pipe and 4 French drain pipe catch basins just to kind of mitigate some of those other issues along the other side of the property that maybe won't be able to be routed down to the park. So this project significantly reduced the impacts of flooding in the nearby residential areas. Here's the before and after. So you can see on the left the before picture. There was it's about ankle deep flooding during a really good rain event. Could potentially be higher if we have a bigger rain event. And then after the project, you see there's no rain in the roadways. So this project was extremely successful. And down the road, we're potentially evaluating if we could use Betty Thomas Park as a stormwater park or another type of feature that would allow us to purposefully flood it and route rainwater that way and stormwater that way, so we don't have to in case we have additional capacity down the road. So this second project, this is at Arthur Court. This is a community that's in our former Heart of Boynton neighborhood. It's along I-95, and this particular road abuts right next to the I-95 stormwater drainage area. So not only was this area having insufficient stormwater management from the city side, but a lot of the rainwater that was routed from the roadway would flow down into this community, and you'd see significant flooding in this area. And so what we wanted to do to improve the community and the neighborhood's quality of life, we installed 200 feet of solid pipe and an 18-inch exfiltration pipe, as well as 3 pipe basins and 2 concrete basins. And then we replaced the swale. And that was really an important part of the project, because if we didn't do those replacements of the rainwater in the swale and put grass or other types of shrubbery there, the project wouldn't have been as successful, because we just put in the gray infrastructure, but then what happens when the water from the roadway comes down? So we needed to find a way to get the water to percolate downwards into the features that we had installed. So this really was a twofold thing. There was also complaints of illicit dumping in this neighborhood as well along that swale, because it's right, it's in a blind spot pretty much. So the way that this project was constructed, it reduced flooding, but it also discouraged illicit dumping. So it was a really exciting project for us, because as you can see in the before and after photos, it's a little hard to see in the nighttime one, but you can see that flooding is between ankle and knee deep. So this was a heavy rain event that occurred about a year or 2 ago, and that is not only rainwater, but it's also runoff from the highway. So that's why it was really important for us to address these concerns. And then on the right, with the completed project and during a rain event, there's no flooding in this area whatsoever. So this was really successful, and it just showed that crossroads of doing gray infrastructure as well as green infrastructure to make sure that we're addressing flood concerns in these areas. So those are 2 really great CIP projects that we've worked on, and our stormwater team has been instrumental in coming up with these innovative types of solutions to address flooding in our areas that maybe don't have as many pervious surfaces. Now quickly, I'm going to be talking about our grant projects. The first project, and probably the most important one, is our adaptation plan. This was a $300,000 grant that was awarded to us through the Resilient Florida program to develop our what we're calling our adaptation playbook. This will align efforts with the state of Florida's adaptation planning guidebook, as well as the Resilient Florida program requirements and our comprehensive vulnerability assessment. It's going to be prioritizing strategies and adaptation needs in the community, and we are going to be generating a priority list of projects when the plan is adopted to make sure that these are the best projects for our community to adapt to flooding and other risks associated with that. It also is designed to maximize cost effectiveness and stakeholder support. and make sure that we have pathways to future funding sources as well as existing ones. So we commenced this project in April of 2025. We are targeting August 18th, but we've had some delays in the project, so we'll likely be taking it to commission for approval a little later in the year. But once we do that, we will be doing our presentation to the community to inform them about what the adaptation plan is and what the expectations are. And we will be adopting this plan by resolution for implementation. So this will enhance the city's long-term resilience, support our infrastructure and capital improvement planning, as well as position us for grant opportunities in the future. The next project I'm going to be talking about is our Lakeside Gardens project. This was funded through the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and this particular neighborhood was in a special flood hazard area. This is a designated repetitive loss area, and some of the finished floor elevations are between 3 and 4 feet. And so what we did is through this grant, we installed new drainage systems, we widened and regraded roadways, we redid the curb and gutter systems, as well as installed 2 outfalls for stormwater discharges. And what the drainage system will do is actually collect, convey, and treat water in each catch basin before being discharged into the Lake Worth Lagoon. All of this was approved by DEP. We received all the required permits and authorizations, and the project was successfully completed at the end of 2025, and we've had no reported flooding since this project was completed. Just some before and after. Before, you can see repetitive loss neighborhood. You can see the flooding on the left picture, and then on the right picture is the final aerial of the project. We don't have any flood photos because we don't have any flood photos after this was created. So it's been really exciting to see how this community has improved because of this drainage improvement project. And then quickly, so our Coquina Cove project is very similar in scope to the Lakeside Gardens one. We're funding this through the Resilient Florida program. They're going to be removing and replacing sanitary sewer manhole and laterals, as well as the water system, but upgrading the stormwater drainage system to include the installation of a new outfall as well. We're going to be rehabilitating the existing lift station and do a full road restoration. This is another repetitive loss neighborhood. So this is a project that's very important to us. And we just started this project back in November of 2025, and it's anticipated to be completed in October of this year. Just some quick photos. This is some of the flooding that happens here. This isn't as bad as some of the typical flooding that we observe in this neighborhood. Sometimes roads are impassable depending on how strong the rain events are. So this is another high priority community. It's also along our intracoastal waterway. And then lastly, I'm going to be talking about living shorelines. This is another green infrastructure solution that we've identified for us to implement in our community. So we completed a living shoreline assessment at 3 of our parks within the city of Boynton Beach, and evaluated the existing site conditions, erosion, vulnerability, flood impacts from all the various flooding events, and basically how a living shoreline would improve the community that experienced some of these issues. So we identified some of the site evaluation constraints. We identified habitat opportunities, as well as a regulatory roadmap to make sure that when we do finally work on the DEP implementation grant, which we're hoping to commence this year, we will be able to have all of our so-called ducks in a row to make sure that we've gotten everything that we need to expeditiously start this project. So, which brings us to the Resilient Florida grant. We were awarded about $536,000 to design and install living shorelines at these parks where the assessment took place. And the grant will support the planning and design and implementation of nature-based solutions to help stabilize the shoreline, reduce flooding, and enhance ecological function. And our design date is tentatively set for October 2026. With that, I'm open to any questions. Thank you for the time to present today.
Thank you, Alana. Any questions? Yes.
A quick question about the projects for the repetitive loss areas. do you guys tinker into the after the fact, like removing them from the list or anything like that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I don't think we've quite gotten there yet. That's a great question. Mainly because the project's completion is so new. So we just completed our Lakeside Gardens project late last year, and we are planning to complete our Coquina Cove project this year. So I would imagine that our team is going to evaluate the repetitive loss and probably just monitor for the next couple of years to see if there's still repetitive losses. And then at that point, I would imagine we would consider taking them off the list.
Great question, great presentation. As I said, incredible progress there. Thank you very much, Alana, for joining us today. Yeah, thank you. Okay, with that, I will transition to Tim and Jenny. Are you going to tell Tim? Yes, perfect. So Army Corps here, providing updates, the latest updates on the our CNSF flood resiliency studies. Thank you for being here.
Does Yvette have the slides pulled up? There we go. I'm not sure if Tim Geisen is on right now. He said he was kind of double booked. I'll give him a quick opportunity if he wants to chime in for an introduction or say anything before I continue. Tim, are you online?
Tim is on. Tim, can you unmute, please?
That he was going to.
Yes, hey, good afternoon.
Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, you want me to say something?
If you wanted to do an introduction or say something real quick.
Yeah, no,
on the
just
first slide.
thanks everybody for being here today. Some really great presentations so far today. Jenny's going to just give you a quick update on a couple of things that we've got going on to kind of do our small part in the overall resilience effort. So again, really appreciate everybody's work on all these different elements of resilience and really great presentations. So I'll turn it over to Jenny. She's one of our senior project managers who's running the couple of our resilience projects. So Jenny, take it over.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm Jennifer Smith, project manager for the Army Corps in the Jacksonville district, but I sit in Palm Beach Gardens. Do you have a problem? Can you hear me? Okay. So this slide, real quick updates. I only have 3 slides and we can go. But here is an updated slide showing all the projects in the ecosystem restoration program and the resiliency program. So some of our newer projects, the Southern Everglades Restoration Project, which is added to this slide. So if you have any questions on any of these projects, I can get you in touch with the project managers, and a lot of them are partner studies with the water management district, so they're highly involved in all of these. So that's just a quick update of all the studies going on. Next slide, Miss Yvette. So this is the Section 216 Miami River Basin study. That's a cost share 50-50 with Water Management District. So we do have our final array of alternatives. So full speed ahead in this project. We've been coordinating with Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, Coral Gables, and Miami International Airport with data collection and feedback and going over all of our alternatives with them as stakeholders. So we've been in communication. So we are fully committed to achieving the tentatively selected plan in March of 2027, but this project is off-ramping. So we are going to achieve this milestone. We're working with the Water Management District on what we can do in the time we have allotted to make sure we have a really good project off-ramping plan so we can tie everything in a nice red bow and put it on a shelf for future that we can pick it up again, or if the Water Management District chooses to do a Section 203, like the Broward Basins project they just completed, they can do that as well. So we're working to make sure that we are efficient as possible to put everything together with a nice red bow and achieve that tentatively selected plan in March 2027. So this is another study that is near Kissimmee River. So it's the Shingle Creek and Kissimmee River study. So it starts just south of Kissimmee and goes south of Shingle Creek, goes south into Lake Toho. So this started in 2025 as a study that is cost shared with Osceola County. So we are full speed ahead with this one as well. We just also, like the 216, finished our final array of alternatives. So modeling is hitting the ground running. We just had our scoping session and evaluation and comparison workshops to make sure that upper management is involved and approving of all of our array of alternatives. So this study is under the new rapid paradigm for Army Corps. So it's part of the initiation to build infrastructure, not paperwork, that you might have heard of. So these studies are very much moving forward quickly. So a lot of the steps that used to take a little bit longer in the Army Corps now will be combined in lots of approvals in one step. So this is a new process where we started before this process was implemented, so it's kind of a combination, but very, very fast moving forward. So any questions about Shingle Creek? That's it. Any questions, you can let me know. You can let Tim know about any of the other projects. I can get you in touch with the folks involved. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, team. So we are transitioning to around the table updates right now. I'm going to start with the ones in the room here with us. And if anybody is online from any of our counties, municipalities, please raise the hand and I'll ask Yvette to help me in case you want to provide additional updates. I will go to the left here. So I don't know if there is anything on the front of the hub, otherwise, do you have any updates? Okay, I'll start with Martin County, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a little update. We've completed our beach renourishment, 4 miles of beach on the north side of the county. It included some dune restoration, as well as it recently received an award from the American Beach and Preservation Association. We're in the middle of our adaptation plan. We're expecting that to be finished by December 2026. Our local mitigation strategy has been adopted and approved. Our emergency management is also beginning a threat and hazard identification and risk assessment. This will help us inform of details of higher risk within the county. We've started our first watershed study for Old Palm City, which is part of a county-wide effort of doing an integrated watershed management plan, similar to what Boynton Beach has done, but on a bigger scale. And that concludes my update.
Excellent, thank you, Amy. Okay, Palm Beach County.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. This has been great. So yeah, Valentina Alvarez with Palm Beach County. We don't really have too much of an update. I just wanted to share, it was briefly mentioned, I forget when, but we hosted a flooding workshop last month. And the goal of that workshop was essentially to get the municipalities to participate and provide them with resources and support and information for moving beyond their vulnerability assessments, towards implementation projects in the future. We had a good turnout. We had some of the presenters that were there are here today, and so thank you all so much for participating in that. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Thank you to have you all here with us today. Okay, City of West Palm Beach, filling big shoes there. It was nice meeting you at the food workshop. Heidi, so please.
Thank you very much. Heidi King, City of West Palm Beach. That was a great workshop. I really enjoyed, in particular, the opportunity to meet the other stakeholders. We have in the City of West Palm Beach 3 resilience projects at the launch stage. I just had stepped out to meet with contractors and engineers on a seawall project. One of the questions that came up there that I want to share with the group was whether or not we plan for monitoring of living seawall elements, and I thought that was a great idea. I know I had spoken with Val about kind of the seagrass monitoring projects that ERM has run in the past. So I would say I would welcome ongoing conversation with folks who have living shoreline elements. I do think it's prudent to see whether, like, what best practices are working well, which maybe we could improve upon next time, because we need them to protect our infrastructure as well as our cities. So I'm very interested in that. We're also kicking off our waterfront adaptation plan this coming week, and finalizing contract for our citywide adaptation plan, which will address the western low-lying parts of the city. So I would welcome technical expertise also. All of us are dealing with funding constraints that mean we can't just have a plan and then go build everything anew. It's kind of a Frankenstein approach. So I think with flood management, if there are best practices, technical best practices and engineering solutions to repairing the old and building the new and making it all work together, I would welcome that conversation as well. So hking@wpb.org if you want to reach out and get nerdy with me on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, Miami-Dade County WASD, thank you for being here, Suzette.
Hi, good morning. Suzette Irizarry with Miami-Dade Water and Sewer. Very excited to share that Miami-Dade Water and Sewer has partnered with the Miami-Dade Innovation Authority to launch a Public Innovation Challenge. So the Public Innovation Challenge is focused on seeking innovative technologies that support circular resource recovery. So that can mean reuse of fog, for example, resource recovery within our water sewer plant as well as our water plants, and just digital solutions that can help us within our system. We have challenge partners, including Florida International University, Miami-Dade County Department of Environmental Resource Management, Water Environment Federation, as well as the Florida Water Environment Federation. So right now, there's an application portal that is open. Application deadline is July 15th, and we welcome any applications for innovative technologies that address these areas. There will be an information session on July 2nd, so I do invite you to visit the website. The website is www.mdia.miami/water. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much for the update. Okay, Sonia, City of Miami, thank you for being here.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Sonia Brubaker. I'm the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Miami. And in Miami, we updated our stormwater master plan a few years ago, and through that modeling, we identified about 24 priority projects. And so we are actively working on about a dozen of those projects currently, which include a series of pump projects. And these are funded through our Miami Forever Bond, which is a general obligation bond and infrastructure bond, as well as state grants and federal grants. And so we have cobbled together some funding sources for all of these projects that they're in various stages of planning and construction, and about a handful are going into construction in 2027. So we are looking at green infrastructure, incorporating green infrastructure into our stormwater projects. And so my office, the Office of Resilience and Sustainability, works with our Public Works Office within the bidding process. We have a resolution from our City Commission where we are a part of the design process so that we can see if green infrastructure is feasible for projects. And so we work with them on all of the projects that are coming in. And then additionally, we have living shorelines in our parks. And so we're really trying to expand that. We have our office developed a guide looking at some different typologies. And so one of those we were able to get a National Fish and Wildlife grant for, where we're doing the design for living shorelines in one of our parks. And so we expect that to be working throughout the year. And then once we have that design, we can go to construction or apply for construction. We also have a number of seawall projects. So we have 18 different seawall projects at our end of roads or our street ends. And so we are putting living seawalls on most of those. And so either the panels or the tiles, depending upon the need. So that is also commencing this year. And our seawall standard is 6 feet in NAVD on the bay, and then 2 feet on the Miami River with the ability to add 2. Except for one of our projects, one of our seawall projects, that is a larger project that was impacted with storm surge into our downtown area, into our Brickell area, our financial district during Hurricane Irma. We're actually putting that seawall at 8 feet. And we're looking to do a living seawall for that as well. We've also installed 70 backflow valves along our river and along the bay. And we're looking to do another 80 within the next couple of years. And then we also are looking at low impact design. So we have a streetscape master plan for a section of our city, the southwest section of our city. And we have a concept for green streets and blue streets. So we were actually able to use CDBG funding just this past year to do a blue street of a 1-block area where we use permeable asphalt for parking, permeable concrete for sidewalks, added a lot more trees, over 70% more cover, and then use structural soils for the first time. So we are able to take a look at that project, and we will be looking at monitoring during the rainy season.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? You said 6 feet in AVD citywide, and then along the Miami River, a different elevation?
It's 4 feet with the ability to add 2 feet.
Okay. Is there a timeline for the future 2 feet? So just for with addition. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Hecker. I'm just going to give a brief update on the resiliency projects at the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, part of the US EPA National Estuary Program that serves Central and Southwest Florida that we are currently funding and doing in our region. On June 2nd, we presented the final advanced vulnerability assessment flood modeling of the 200-year, 500-year, and compound flooding and their impacts on critical assets, including visualizations of all that, to the Polk County Stormwater Technical Advisory Committee, and it was accepted by them in Polk County, so that project has essentially concluded. Yesterday, we also presented our final comprehensive vulnerability assessment to the Charlotte County Commission, and that was accepted, so now that will be going on to DEP. For Highlands, Hardy, and DeSoto County, where we've been doing adaptation action area planning projects, we have since finalized the top 3 adaptation action area plans for each of those counties and are now going to be presenting those to each county commission over July and August to have those accepted and forwarded to DEP. Those adaptation action area plans have projects for each of the vulnerable critical assets in them, along with conceptual designs, descriptions, and cost estimates that will allow and position those counties to go forward to get project implementation grant funding. We also recently kicked off the Sarasota County Adaptation Action Area Planning Project, as well as are presently scoping a new adaptation plan implementation oyster resiliency project in Manatee County that we hope to kick off in the next couple months. And we also are currently in contract negotiations to begin design of the Tiki Point Living Shoreline project that we're funding and doing in the city of Punta Gorda. Finally, we have put out a call for abstracts for our 6th annual Southwest Florida Resiliency Summit that's going to be held in September in Punta Gorda. This is being held a day before the start of the statewide Florida Resiliency Conference and is in walking distance from where that conference is being held to make it easy for people to attend both if they would like to do so. There are flyers available on the front table, or I have some extras as well if you'd like more information. Registration and the agenda will be posted August 1st at the CHNEP.org website, so please check back then if you're interested in attending. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, Yvette, do we have hands raised from Zoom?
No, there's no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. I'm not sure if Emily's there yet. Otherwise, we can provide an update from DOT on the next one.
Sorry, we have one hand raised now.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's Emily with FDOT.
Go ahead, Emily.
Yes, we
Thank
can
you. I
hear you.
appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. As she said, my name is Emily Rhodes. I'm a senior statewide planning coordinator with the Office of Policy Planning here at FDOT. I wanted to just share an update on RAP. Just to provide a bit of history in case anybody listening is unaware, the FDOT RAP is the Resiliency Action Plan. This was completed in 2023. Per section 339.157 of Florida statutes, every third year since then, on June 30th, following the creation of RAP, FDOT is required to submit a status report reviewing the updates to that said action plan and any associated implementation activities that are either noted or new or maybe ongoing since then. FDOT has decided this year, though, to spotlight America's very exciting 250th birthday and rename the status report as the Florida Strong Status Report to reflect our goal for Florida's infrastructure. So as I shared, the Florida Strong Status Report, it focuses on those implementation activities. We're emphasizing on the strategies that were included in the original action plan. FDOT highlights strategies used to bring this strength to all the appropriate projects that are in place or ongoing. In addition to that, we also highlighted efforts FDOT is doing to prioritize being more prepared for future storm damage, which in turn allows us here at FDOT to have a quicker response time to that storm damage. A prime example of that is 2022 Hurricane Ian, the damage that it caused to the Sanibel Causeway in Lee County. The coordination between FDOT and the local community in Lee County was imperative to the great success of that getting reopened in record time. I believe it was about 15 days. We were specific, though, in our choice of the structure of the Florida Strong Status Report, and I just want to make sure that's clear. And we're ensuring that it is reflective of the original design of the RAP document. We did this to ensure that there was consistency and ease for those who are reading along and wanted to make sure there were updates trying to follow in the same order that they were presented in the original RAP. As of last week, this status report has made its way through FDOT's leadership, and at this time it is anticipated to be submitted over to the governor, the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives on or before June 30th, which is next week. And that's all I have. If there's any questions, if not, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emily. With that, I think we are wrapping up. I do have just a few slides with notes and some upcoming events. Okay, so interesting things that were shared. I'm going to stop. Yeah. Yeah, I think we were both trying to open at the same time. Great, thank you. So just some interesting information that was shared with us. So this is from Regional Stormwater Centers of Excellence. They have funding available to support technical assistance in Florida in general and some additional states there in the Southeast. The focus is stormwater, so it's the Coastal Stormwater Center of the Southwest. It serves communities in the coastal plain portions, including Florida, and the lead is Center for Watershed Protection. So they reach out and ask me to share that with you all. So really, again, technical assistance available for all the activities listed here in this email. Thank you for sharing this. There is a link and a barcode there for you to be able to understand what is being offered here and request this technical assistance. This is mostly in-kind staff from them to support some of those efforts. And signing up for newsletter is also available here. So thank you, Adrienne, for sharing all those details with us. I also received from the Army Corps, I've actually been, we we here in the agency have been receiving several calls on how we have been developing Section 203. There is definitely momentum out there from different local governments interested in doing and advancing Section 203 studies. And the Army Corps has organized this session now in Savannah, Georgia. So it's July 21, 22nd, and 23rd. So there is the contact information here from Dr. Taylor, Brian Taylor, from the ASA office here, the Office of Water Project Review, for more information. But again, any local sponsor interested in pursuing this 203 path is invited to attend this workshop and reach out to Dr. Taylor here for if you do plan to attend. The information is included in this slide. Some of the upcoming events, I think they were probably all mentioned. Annual Environmental Permitting School beginning July 21st. The Quarterly Resiliency Forum from FDP on August 5th. We have the annual Florida Resilience Conference in Charlotte Harbor, September 23 to 25th. Jennifer Hecker just mentioned the Southwest Florida Resiliency Summit the day before. Again, also Charlotte Harbor, September 22nd. And then the 18th Annual Southeast Florida Climate Leadership Summit, this time in Broward, Fort Lauderdale, on November 4 to 6. If you have any idea, comment, or recommendation for future meetings, do not hesitate to contact us. Really share our ideas. We really welcome them. Here is a feedback survey to this forum, and the upcoming meeting will happen on October 21st. I hope to see you all there. And thank you so much for being with us today. I have one final request. We are on the World Cup spirit here, and everybody cheering up for Brazil tonight. Thank you.